The events unfold in Sutton County. A young woman asks the butler if she's heard from Eddie, to which he replies to the Countess that there is no news from Mr. Eddie and the situation remains the same. Then she wonders where Eddie could have disappeared to during such a difficult time for them. The Seventh Empire was on the brink of collapse, and the previous night the Imperial Palace had been attacked by unknown assailants. The last emperor of the Seven Hills, named Hildar, was a tyrant, and that is why he was eliminated. The nobles of the empire had to lock their doors, awaiting their fate, and among them was the head of the Satan family. His name was Roviel Satatone. The girl was wondering where Eddie had disappeared to, when suddenly someone screamed loudly next to her. She opened the door and saw a man who said that the soldiers who attacked the palace were already here and had set up an ambush. The butler looked at the Countess with alarm, and she realized that now that the emperor had fallen into eternal sleep, these soldiers could head to the palace after the emperor. But as the mayor of the city, she was obliged to protect her family at any cost. The butler cautiously inquired where the Countess was going. The girl just stepped outside, and the bright sunlight blinded her eyes. Then she noticed her brother, who was looking at her happily and asking if he was late. Roviel asked what Eddie was doing, and his brother replied that he had prepared a gift for her that she would definitely like. He handed the tiara over, and the main character was shocked, realizing that it was he who had started the rebellion. After some time, the girl was already in the theater, and her brother was saying that now that the coronation ceremony was over, she became a true empress. The main character turned to Eddie. She wanted him to listen to her, and the boy asked what happened, and the girl asked her question. She wondered why he had decided to do such a thing. Eddie explained that 2 years ago, in the winter, she herself had said that if she became empress, she could make their lives better. The girl realized in shock that this was precisely what prompted him to put her words into action. The young lady thought that the red liquid had already spilled, and now she would have to deal with the consequences herself, because the emperor's head could not be reattached. After this, she ordered Eddie to call the scribes, and the young man asked what she was going to do. The empress replied that she was obliged to carry out her duties properly, and asked if he wanted her to become like the previous emperor without a head. Eddie said he cared for his dear sister, but the role of empress required much more than the former tyrant could have imagined. The young lady paused, then ordered the butler to tie the idiot to a chair. He agreed, but the boy was only surprised. Thus, the Empire of the Seven Hills acquired a new ruler, the first empress, Roviel Soten, and this event became a step towards its brilliant future. However, a little while later, the girl, with bruises under her eyes, was sitting over a pile of papers. Her brother was lying on the sofa, and she stood up and said that she had had enough. She had been clearing the empire of the legacy of the previous ruler for 3 months now, and it seemed the work was only increasing. Eddie asked if they hadn't already removed the extra people and were worrying for nothing. But the girl explained that there were 4 dukes remaining in the north, south, west, and east, and she did not trust them. Besides, there are very few people she can completely trust. Eddie noted that 3 families had left because of the struggle for the throne, and he was always on guard to make sure no one would dare take his sister's place. The girl reminded her brother that there were strict prohibitions between them and asked if he had forgotten, as this would only add to the workload. The young man nodded and handed the grape to his sister. He added that she was very talented since she was able to force the head of the inspection team to reconsider his views, so she shouldn't worry. She can handle it. Roviel asks what talent he is talking about and asks where he noticed it, because if he really had it, she would have been married 3 times already. She also considers how to retain people when they are overwhelmed by the workload, and whether there is no one who is smart, attentive, and healthy enough not to resign. Suddenly, the girl starts thinking about resigning, after which the thought comes that it's worth looking for that one, someone who really understands this matter. The young lady slams her hand on the table, and her brother asks worriedly what happened. The main character insists she needs to get married. The guy asks if she means marriage and points out that she's still old enough for it, if she finds the right man. He must be the strongest on the continent, after which Roviel screams that no way. She emphasizes that Eddie should listen, because she needs someone who can listen carefully. At the same time, a man must be reliable, and most importantly, helpful, a sort of butler. Eddie says he understands, He also promises to find someone who will suit his busy sister. The girl is surprised and asks who exactly he intends to look for. She realizes she's starting to feel a little uneasy. Eddie Sutton is Roviel's brother. Their father passed away when Eddie was still little, and when the young lady turned 14, his mother followed him, carrying the entire family on her own. As children, they had to focus on preserving the satin line, and while Eddie was a baby, the girl had no time for him. Because of this, he had to leave his home for 6 years. Roviel entered into eternal sleep at the age of 27, and Eddie's departure became her greatest regret in her past life. After that, she got a chance to correct her mistakes when she was 14 again. The first thing she did was rush to Edwin. She hugged him tightly, and in gratitude for her sincerity, the boy grew up very smart. He became strong and healthy, and his fencing skills were recognized as genius. However, rumors soon began to circulate that he was the notorious madman of Finland. The girl realizes she's allowed him to develop freely. At that moment, someone addresses Her Highness, and she replies that everything is fine. She asks if this is the full list of participants, to which Kyle replies that yes, there are only 178 of them. Roviel is pleased that so many candidates have gathered. The girl notices the name Dalton Pagos and is surprised that a duchy from the east is also participating in the tournament. After all, it is illegal to claim the throne without the consent of the 4 dukes. She thinks something sinister might be afoot. Roviel realizes that all 4 duchies of the empire are involved in this battle. She finds it unpleasant to acknowledge herself as empress, because if the dukes join forces and create an army, it will be extremely difficult for her while she is deprived of a stable position. The girl turns to Kyle, asking him to tell her about the candidates from the duchies. The guy talks about the first one, who is recognized as the strongest knight in the East. He is 23 years old, he is prophesied to become a duke, he is known for his leadership, but a little impatient. The girl asks for the next one, and Kyle describes another duke who showed skill with the ball at the Imperial Academy, but she decides that these candidates are not suitable. She wonders if there is anyone with experience in managing an estate, who excels in economics or politics, or, better yet, who knows how to resolve conflicts within the empire. Kyle explained that the people who were mainly involved in this business were those who were skilled with a sword, and the young lady wondered why such people were needed. In the process, it became clear that they would have to deal with Sir Edwin. Therefore, Kyle mainly selected candidates with outstanding fencing skills, which surprised the girl. She realized that her brother intended to ruin all her plans, because she needed a skilled companion, and not just a skilled swordsman. Kyle added that this is only a small part, and in the end, there is still the Duke from the North, who everyone considers the favorite in the final and Sir Eddie's rival. This man is Duke Dehard of the Northern Duchy, who is feared and respected for his strength and toughness. However, the young lady realized that this was the only person she knew from her past life, and moreover, he was absolutely safe. If he were truly dangerous, his duchy would have acted very differently. Besides, marrying one duke would temporarily delay the plans of the other dukes on the continent. She was determined not to let Eddie harm such a valuable candidate. Rising, the young lady heard a servant ask if she was going anywhere, and with a smile, she merely replied that she was going to rip someone's legs off. After some time, she was already telling the young man to keep his hands higher, and he, looking at her in surprise, asked if he was worse than the other applicants. And does she really want to see a weak man next to her? This irritated the girl. However, she calmed down and stated that once the decision had been made, it should remain so, because only she herself had the right to choose who to get engaged to and who not to. Over the course of a year, the young lady will observe whether the candidate is suitable for the role of husband, and therefore will not allow Eddie to interfere in this matter. The guy objected that there shouldn't be a weak person next to his sister, but assured her that he would deal with anyone who dared to offend her. The girl realized she had to be on guard. After a while, someone entered the room and asked if Her Highness had called. It turned out to be Cecil Bright, commander of the Empire's Internal Affairs Inspection Team. The main character invited Cecile in with a smile and asked how she had been doing lately, but Cecile only clarified what they were talking about, because she barely remembered the last time she returned home. She also asked if there would be any orders today, since the young lady had summoned her. The protagonist apologized for disturbing her, understanding that the young woman was busy. She then asked to look after Eddie for the next few days, as she was afraid to leave things to chance. The blonde understood the request and noted that she had tried to introduce one of the knights to Sir Edwin, but all attempts had ended in failure. She also asked if Her Highness was sure her relationship with Sir Edwin was as it had been before. The girl was surprised and stated that it would be extremely difficult to find such close friends as a brother and sister in the Empire. She clarified that last month Edwin secretly crossed the border and brought the manglada elixir. It's a famous medicine in the Grima Kingdom, and it could have been added to her food. Regardless of the dose, it is unknown for what purpose he did it, and everything happened in secret from her. The young lady merely smiled, assuring Cecile that she need not worry. Such antics of Edwin's were a long-standing hobby of his, along with escaping. After their parents passed away, he became obsessively concerned about her health. He was 16 when he ran away and brought her medicine from the south, asking her to eat it. This angered the girl and she forbade him from bringing such things, so he probably found another way to slip it into her food. Her brother is exactly that kind of person, so Cecile shouldn't worry, because thanks to him, she stays healthy. The blonde nodded. Regarding Sir Edwin, Cecile promised to do everything possible, and regarding the 4 dukes, she would send a report as soon as new information became available. Roviel agreed. As soon as the door closed, the young lady collapsed onto the sofa, realizing that she urgently needed a husband who could take on some of the responsibilities. Otherwise, overexertion threatened her with eternal sleep in this life. A short time later, she approached the candidates. Sitting on the throne, she ordered them to rise from their knees. Roviel watched the 2 of them closely. These were the heirs of the Pagos and Delma families, as well as the one who was called the Monster from the North, Haven Dehard. The young lady declared the tournament open. She recalled her first encounter with the Monster of the North during a particularly harsh winter. On her way home, 14 years ago, the responsibilities of being the head of the family rested on the fragile shoulders of a little girl. She was ridiculed, ignored, and constantly betrayed. She had a history of deception and times when she had to sell her things and there was no support from others, so going north was her last hope. Now the girl noticed that the guy had the same rough facial features as he had then. He was her peer, a man from the distant north, Haven Dehard. And now she understood that her decision to go north had been the right one. The boy took pity on her because she had trembled before him then. The young lady now thought of him, and though they called him a monster from the north, he was Satin's benefactor. At this point, Eddie turned to his sister, saying that the action was beginning. It was the turn of the gentleman from the south, Sir Japhet Delmoy, to duel without turning to his brother. She asks if he thinks Delmoy will win, to which he asks if she can't see it herself, and if his sister really thinks that her eyes are just for beauty. The girl recalls that a long time has passed since she packed his lunches and watched his fencing training. Soon, a cry rings out that Duke Delmoy is the winner. The girl remarks that she was right, and the boy confirms it, adding that Sir Pagos will be the next to go. The main character asks when the finale will take place, to which her brother replies, "In a week." Roviel understands that the meeting is near, but this could delay the process. The young lady realizes that any candidate will do, so she wants to be provided with a worker as soon as possible. At that moment, they hear a cry from the arena, and when the girl looks there, she sees the Duke pointing his sword at his opponent. He lifts it higher and commands his opponent to fall into eternal sleep. The main character gets up from her seat and addresses Eddie. The young man jumps into the arena, claiming to have understood his sister, and skillfully repels the Duke's attack. His sword flies away, but the boy exclaims that he objects, asking how they dared desecrate a sacred tradition. He adds that Sir Satin has no right to interfere during the tournament. The girl asks if he considers her a saint. If he calls it sacred, it could incur the wrath of God, for anyone who dares to put an opponent into eternal sleep is considered a criminal. The young man gets angry and says that Her Majesty is establishing new rules right during the tournament. It's unfair, but the girl explains that the point of the tournament is to choose her future husband. The question of the problem disappears, because she sets the rules herself, and the duel, in her opinion, does not deserve attention. She turns to Eddie and instructs him to monitor the progress of the tournament, to which the young man agrees. The blonde is angry, and Roviel realizes that she thought she would get rid of such trash, but it turned out the opposite, and after the tournament starts, she will have a meeting. She had no idea that after ascending the throne, she would encounter such spectacular chaos. In the north, along with the Seven Frosts, they hold back the Grypton Empire. Nearby lies the Zilton Empire, a friendly country of the Seven Frosts. However, trade disagreements arose between Zilton and the Empire. The reason is that the Seven Hills gold coins are cast from 12 grams of gold, while the Zilton coins are cast from 14 grams. The Emperor's aunt appropriated 320,000 gold pieces. Zilton, patient with the friendship with the Seven Hills, formally protested. The Foreign Office, on the brink of bankruptcy, declared it could not compensate the Empire for its demands. The girl simply tells the guy to shut up. The man apologizes and clarifies what exactly Her Highness said. She reassures him, telling him not to worry and to simply follow the soldiers, as nothing more is required of him. The boy reminds her that she talked about cutting open his stomach. The girl replies that perhaps he has hearing problems, and he understands everything perfectly well, so let him be taken out quickly and cut beautifully. The man pleads for mercy, acknowledging his regret. Other aristocrats believe the punishment is too harsh for someone who worked so hard for the empire for so many years. The young lady asks if this is a harsh punishment and states that she is ashamed to see the result of 12 years of this man's incompetence. She wonders what happened that they can't find a solution to, and asks if they are capable of taking responsibility and solving the problem with dignity. Roviel also questions why the Empire's taxes should cover their mistakes, and promises that if he tells the truth, she will not harm him. The girl wondered if he really didn't know that Marcos and his aunt were squandering the family money. A few days later, the former foreign minister. He was executed for bribery. The pursuit of the former emperor's family's wealth ended, and the girl, having created an emergency fund, was able to compensate for the damage to the Zilton Empire. The tournament was about to begin at this time, and soon the girl was already sighing deeply. At that moment, her brother approached her, noticing his sister's fatigue. He'd been told she'd barely touched her soup, and he wanted to confirm that was true. Roviel replied that she was just a little tired, and carefully asked if he had added anything to her soup, as its taste was questionable. Eddie remarked that it would be better if his sister didn't find out, and the girl repeated her words again. She insisted that her sister didn't need a doctor, but a good husband. The young man agreed that if that was the case, there's no reason to worry. Duke Dehard will win. The main character was surprised and reminded him that the tournament wasn't over yet. The young man only said that the Duke was the strongest in the north and asked if that was true. They then entered the arena, and the young lady took her place on the throne. She saw at this time how Haven Dehard was fighting with another Duke who had previously expressed dissatisfaction. They crossed swords, but at one moment one of the swords suddenly cracked. The blonde was shocked as he watched the shard of his weapon fly away, and soon Haven Dehard was declared the winner. The heroine merely smiled. The boy approached Her Majesty and announced that he dedicated his victory to her. The girl extended her hand to him and said that she gladly accepted this gesture. Haven kissed the young lady's hand, and she realized that she had a faithful assistant, the man who will be by her side until the end. The boy turned to Her Majesty again. The girl asked what exactly he wanted to say and once again congratulated him on his victory. The young man apologized and admitted he wanted to ask her one thing. The girl became interested in what he was talking about. He asked if her younger brother was crazy. Roviel wondered if Eddie had done anything to the Duke. The boy explained that if his brother had not participated in the tournament, he would have gone to the Grypto Empire and wreaked havoc there. And if he had, quote, put one or two commanders into eternal sleep, a war would have begun. The protagonist realized that if the Grypton Empire invaded, the northern duchy of Dehard would be the first to suffer. It is located close to the border, and Eddie forced the Duke to participate in the tournament, threatening consequences. She also realized that Dehard was a decent man, and if his brother forced him, he had the right to refuse and leave if he didn't like it. The guy told her that the idea of attacking Grypton now seemed like a good idea to him. The main character was surprised, because the Duke was talking about an actual war with the Empire, and asked if it was true. He confirmed that since he had won the tournament, Her Majesty would not remain idle when his hometown was in danger. Roviel realized that there really was a dangerous person involved. She noted that it was worth considering more than just his threats. The guy took her hand, and he quietly whispered that he already belonged to her. The girl was surprised and said that she had to decide on the winner herself. He's not the only contender. The guy asked with interest, "Is that so?" She hasn't yet made up her mind, to which the girl agrees. She states that she plans to consider all candidates over the next year, and if he's not satisfied, he can return north immediately. The Duke, not hiding his excitement, turns to Her Majesty, asking if she doesn't like him. Roviel realizes that he is certainly a valuable candidate and explains that it is not a matter of whether she likes him or not. However, Haven admits that he has taken a liking to the lady. Roviel muses that if he proves himself within this year, then she can add him to the list of potential suitors, although it is better that he does not know about it yet. After this, the girl lightly touches his chin, emphasizing that she hopes for mutual understanding. Haven places the lady's hand on his cheek and assures her that he will never let her down. A little later, the Empress is already busy with her own affairs and realizes that, with the tournament over, it's time to give them new assignments. At that moment, someone knocks on the door. The girl orders them in. The man informs Her Majesty that there are those who have requested an audience. The young lady expresses interest in knowing who it is. The butler brings Pagos Dalton from the east and Jafet Delmoy from the south. One of them explains that they have come with a message from their duchies for Her Majesty. Roviel understands that such a development was possible, but she doesn't quite grasp that the two duchies are now uniting. The blonde man addresses Her Majesty and states that he, Pagos Dalton, wishes to be chosen as the finalist of the national tournament, and if he is chosen as the winner, the eastern and southern duchies will remain loyal to the Citan family. The girl objects that she doesn't like it and that she won't accept such conditions. Besides, didn't they lose to Duke de Hard in the competition? The young man irritably asks if Her Majesty understands the meaning of her words and what their proposal means. Roviel notes that presenting such a young man as an envoy is, in their opinion, putting themselves above her. She turns to him and explains that the problem isn't hers, but his lack of understanding. The young lady wonders if he will only swear his vows on the condition that she marry him. If so, it means that if she refuses, he will turn against her. In that case, she will have to act harshly, eliminating them and considering them traitors. Another young man assures Her Majesty she is mistaken. Their families did not conspire to commit treason. As founders of the Seven Hills, they wish to offer her power to strengthen their position. He adds that Her Majesty can make the southeast her stronghold, and they will consider it an honor to serve her as her right hand. The main character notices that this young man is skillful in persuasion and then turns to Pagos Dalton. She asks him to tell his father to be more sincere in his intentions. At the same time, she informs that the Duke's second son is not to her taste, which confuses the guy. At this point, the Empress asks the second youth to stay behind to clarify some details. After Pagos leaves, she turns to him. She asks what the Southern Duchy will get if she marries Pagos, giving him a chance to think. The boy replies that it is enough that Pagos is a loyal subject of Her Majesty. The girl then just laughs and remarks that she expected that she would be asked to choose one of them, since they came together, but it turned out differently. Previously, he also claimed attention, but now he turned out to be only a bridesmaid, and perhaps his role is only to rejoice at Pagos' success. The guy falls silent for a while, and then declares that he is ready to convey the will of Her Majesty to her father. After they sent the guests back south and east, Roviel spent the rest of the day doing paperwork, and then it was time. The banquet at which the final winner of the national tournament will be announced has begun. After a short time, someone reports that Her Imperial Majesty has arrived. When the music began, one of the dukes extended his hand to her. He offered to dance, after which the girl smiled and agreed. While dancing, she wondered if this young man thought she was beautiful, and then whispered to Haven to come to her office the next morning. The guy was surprised, because usually they say, "Come to my place this evening," but the Empress merely told him not to talk nonsense. The next morning he appeared at the estate, where the girl introduced him to her first secretary. The young man asked if this meant that this secretary was with Her Majesty all the time. It turned out that their paths would now cross more often, but the main character turned to Haven. She warned him not to frighten the young man, adding that she wouldn't repeat it twice. The Duke promised to heed her words. The girl handed over several documents and suggested that he first look at them, asking whether the young man would approve of them in her place or not. The guy looked through the papers and, when he finished, returned them back. noting that he would reject them for 3 reasons. The girl was interested in what these reasons were, and the Duke explained. Firstly, it was not even worth considering. The tax, which is under consideration, will either be abolished or replaced due to growing public discontent, and, in his opinion, it should be reduced. Secondly, although it all seems reasonable, in fact it is complete nonsense. The Yale lands were recently restored, and many families moved there. But it's surprising that there are already people starving there. We need to find out what's going on there. Either it's a hoax or something more widespread. The girl asked about the third reason, and the Duke replied, first, it was necessary to abandon the development of mineral mines in the Del Moy Mountains. The relationship between the two interested territories seeking to turn these mountains into a border needs to be explored, and if they don't figure it out in time, it could end in an open battle for land. The protagonist realized that all 3 of these problems were precisely what she'd been missing, and Haven's proposed solutions were entirely consistent with her understanding. Now, the opinion of this rebellious young man no longer mattered. The girl invited the guy to have a cup of tea with her, and soon they were sitting together. The Empress stated that, in her opinion, the engagement could be arranged as early as next week. The Duke recalled that at yesterday's banquet she had hinted that there was no need to rush. The young lady replied that she had reconsidered her views and asked if he was okay with it. He assured her that he absolutely would not, and was ready to arrange everything tomorrow. He remarks that the lady looks very attractive, and the girl replies that it goes without saying. After all, how can one be dissatisfied when the only man one can rely on is ready to help her? The guy is surprised and asks if he is the only one like this, and the girl with a slight smile remarks that she is thinking about someone else. About taking a lover after marriage. This revelation hits him hard. After which he clenches his fists and jumps up from the sofa, claiming that he does not intend to watch how she shares her feelings with someone else. The young lady only shakes her head and explains that he misunderstood. It's important to her to have as many people on her side as possible. The Duke says that if the lady marries another, then it will be perceived as a challenge, and the consequences will be severe. The main character is slightly surprised and clarifies that it is only about expanding the harem. However, the young man with gray hair interrupts her, declaring that he will protect her, and if the 4 families cross the borders, he will personally bring her their heads. If Grypto dares to encroach on her lands, he will immediately dispatch troops and prevent the threat. The main character is surprised and wonders if he really wants to say that he intends to unite the continent. The boy replies that, if Her Majesty so desires, he will do so immediately. Then the girl turns to him, telling him to calm down and not act like Eddie, and he agrees. She understands that bringing them closer together will have a stronger effect. The young lady places her hand on his palm and turns to him again, claiming that if he makes her a promise, she will reconsider her decision about the harem. She asks him to promise that he will always be by her side, to support her, and to stay close until eternal sleep separates them. The guy swears his life before Her Majesty, and the main character rejoices at his determination. A little later, she enjoys her tea and realizes that Haven's choice was the right one. She hasn't felt such peace for a long time. If he really has such talent, she should arrange an engagement and enter into a lifelong contract with him as soon as possible. But when the girl tries a piece of cake, the taste is unpleasant, and she involuntarily screams. The young lady realizes that, without Eddie's intervention, the food is too bitter. And as soon as she meets this guy, she will speak out without holding back, even if he doesn't like it. At this time, someone enters the room and informs Her Majesty that the commander of the knights has arrived. The main character asks if it is Cecile, and orders the guest to be let in. When the blonde enters, the young lady asks for news. The commander merely apologizes for the disturbance and informs her of an urgent matter. The main character wants to know what happened, and the commander explains that recently, a mass kidnapping took place in Finland, with 7 people kidnapped from nearby cities of the empire. The missing persons are prominent figures from various walks of life. The young lady asks who exactly they are talking about. The commander of the knights lists that this is a professor of legal sciences from the academy and the 3rd daughter of Count Gideon. He also names a renowned architect, the 75-year-old historian Tamolia. But the protagonist raises her hand, indicating that Cecile can wait. She has already told her enough, and then asks what the motive for all this is. The Knight's commander replies that they have testimony from a witness who witnessed the abduction of the fourth victim. According to him, the kidnapper claimed that Her Majesty wanted to see him. The main character puts her hands on her head, realizing that they are talking about none other than Eddie. The blonde claims that the abducted are now in Sutin County, and everything is fine, because they will be released soon. And, how can I say, all these events are connected with rumors that Her Majesty is planning to create her own harem. The main character thinks about the harem and remembers Haven's words, who would definitely not tolerate such a thing, and tries to understand where these rumors came from. Moreover, she asks where Edwin is now. The Knight Commander replies that he is at the Palace Stadium. A little later, the girl arrives there. The guy turns to his sister with a smile. He asks if she really came to see him. The young lady turns to Eddie. She asks if he has something to tell her. He asks what it is and why she is angry. The girl explains that she found out about his kidnapping of people and that he locked them in the mansion. The young man replies that he did not kidnap them, but merely offered them work for the royal family. The young lady tells her brother that forcing people without their consent is kidnapping, and not letting them go home is false imprisonment. The young man insists that they will then be faithful to her for the rest of their lives, and that anyone who tries to betray them will pay with their lives. After all, it's easier to protect themselves from dangerous people who might stab them in the back. The girl is silent, and then gives her brother a flick on the face. She orders him to wake up and reminds him how many times she has already asked him not to do such stupid things. Then he tells him to make an appointment and apologize properly. The young man asks if he should ask first and then take them with him. The girl replies that that's fine, as long as no one else gets kidnapped. The girl understands that in any case she planned to hire many more secretaries and civil servants. The system also needs to be reorganized to ensure stable operation. She tells the guy they can go and see how regular people do it. On the way, the girl wonders which of the people Eddie brought would agree to work for her. She understands that if she doesn't follow Haven's will, then with his talent, it is impossible to avoid serious consequences. At this time, she notices the Duke and wonders if he is heading towards her, regardless of how he feels about the situation. The guy at this point turns to Her Majesty, asking if she likes the jealous type of young men. Rovio wondered what had suddenly occurred to this young man. Some time later, they were sitting together, and the girl explained that it was just a misunderstanding. She had no intention of causing anyone pain, and all these rumors seemed absurd to her. After this, the young man asked if he should worry, to which the girl replied that, of course, he was the only one for her. The guy responded by saying that for him too, Her Majesty is the only one. The girl found this wonderful and involuntarily touched a strand of the Duke's hair, after which he leaned against her arm. He looked at her with interest, and the girl thought about how enticing his gaze was. The lady moved closer to the Duke and kissed him tenderly. When the young man pulled away, he apologized for the dryness of his lips. The main character continued to look at him, and he, noticing this, asked if he had been too hasty. The girl thought that they were already engaged, and engagement was the first step to marriage. It was customary for married people to share a bed, and besides, she had promised Haven that there would be no harem. At that moment, the young lady was thinking that if he became the only man she would kiss for the rest of her life, it would be wonderful. The guy carefully asked if he had ruined her mood. The girl decided that even if she kissed him until the end of her days, it would only be a joy. She approached Haven again and called his name, but at that moment someone knocked on the door of the room. The main character allowed entry and moved away from the Duke. The butler apologized for interrupting and assured her that he would tell her quickly, as a notification had arrived from the Delmoy household with a marriage proposal. The Duke merely listened to this, turned to Her Majesty, and asked to summon the commander of the knights. He explained that Delmoy's lands could be completely destroyed. The girl reminded him that she had already advised him to avoid Eddie. The young man apologized, but stated that, with all due respect to her, as a duke he had the right to deal with them. Rovio said that if he decided to start a war, he would have to forget about it. The guy was a little surprised, and the young lady reminded him that he was the only one for her. The Duke was embarrassed, and the girl asked if he could refuse the offer, since she had everything to deal with Delma on her own. The girl realized that their recent moment of provocation had greatly affected him. After the refusal, When they returned, the girl received a report from Cecile about the progress in the southwest. Since she and Haven were not yet married, uniting the North and Finland, the opponents felt that now was the right time to act. The girl was sure that Skyr would not risk provocation, leaving only the option of uniting Pagos and Delmoy, which would inevitably lead to civil war. In the current situation, these two parties will find themselves on opposite sides of the barricades, which has its advantages. And since Delmoy himself proposed marriage, this opportunity couldn't be missed. The girl turned to the Duke, assuring him that she already had a plan for her opponents. Haven admitted that he still wondered what was going on in her head at such moments. But the girl then asks if he thinks it would be better to eliminate the Pagos. And the guy then asserts that Her Majesty is much more interesting than he could have suspected. However, then he also notices that the girl is shaking, after which she immediately takes off her jacket. And he puts it on the lady and also claims that he thought here that suddenly she might be cold, and her hands are frozen. The girl then replies that the cold goes away when he takes care of her, and also everything is fine with her so the guy can go, after which he bows and states that he will wait for the meeting. A little while later, the princess turns to Count Delmoy and asks if he was not the bridesmaid. Saying he'll be happy for his neighbors, the young man insists that no matter how joyful the motive, he doesn't think Her Majesty would be happy about it, even if it were a family member. Roviel then asks the Count if he thinks that if he makes her his husband, he will be able to receive more privileges than he currently has. The guy is surprised and claims that it was only his admiration for the lady that prompted him to propose. The girl then thinks what a hypocrite he is, and she asks what to do because Duke de Hart is very jealous and she values his feelings very much. And besides, the news will quickly reach the east, and the girl asks if he thinks Pagos will like this. And isn't he afraid of the consequences? The guy replies that even if there are consequences, Delmoy is not related to Pagos, after which the main character smiles and says that it is true. After all, Delmoy has been suffering for about 10 years now, and enough time has passed since the invasion of Mises, as well as the assistance provided to them by the Duchy of Pagos. Their observation of the behavior of the Pagos lands continues. The 4 duchies of the 7 hills were entrusted with guarding the empire's borders, as their military might provided advantages even without the empire's own support. But the borders of the Delmoy lands in the south of the empire were destroyed by the machinations of Mises. During a difficult time for the south, the east, namely Duke Pagos, came to the rescue. The assistance provided in this grave crisis changed the relationship between the 2 duchies. But good is quickly forgotten, and the south wished to restore its honor and position. Now the guy claims that Pagosa is no match for Delma. The girl then asks him what he's talking about, but he claims that, if we recall, just recently, high-quality ore deposits were discovered on the lands of the Viscounty of Hilda. However, this area ended up near eastern Alkes. The ore source is on the border of Mount Delpine. The aristocracy of the east and south argued over who should rightfully own the spring. Hildel asked for help from Delmoy and Alkes from Pagos, but the result was the same. After all, the south is in debt to the east, and the girl claims that 10 years have already passed and the situation has changed. Now, neither the North nor Finland will tolerate Delma's humiliation. The girl also understands that if Pagos decides to settle this incident, she will. Then the empire will intervene to secure world peace. The discontented cries from the southern aristocracy, reaching incredible proportions, are not worth mentioning. And if in this way it is possible to take control of Delma by calming the ardor of the Pagos, who is she in the business? At this time, the guy claims that, like last time, he will quote her words and then leaves. The main character understands that she has done everything in her power. And now, the choice is up to Delma. But suddenly her body stops obeying her and the girl sits on the floor. One of the servants asks if Her Majesty is ill and orders a doctor to be brought quickly. But the young lady feels even worse, after which she closes her eyes. The girl understands that she spent her first life alone. However, she tried not to take it personally until one day she heard it. That she is an ice queen because of whom a small child is suffering. And she has no idea how she returned to life. But she decided for herself that in this life everything will be different. Next to her is her brother, who laughs even when she hasn't said anything funny, and her caring husband, who helps her with everything. Even though Eddie continues his hobby of putting potions in food, she would rather eat it and live as long as she can. At this time, the girl opens her eyes and hears someone saying that he forbids her and will not allow her to fall into eternal sleep. The boy also begs her to open her eyes and not repeat past mistakes. After this, the main character merely strokes her brother's head. The guy is surprised and asks if his sister has come to her senses. But she can't just fall into eternal sleep like that. Roviel asks what he's talking about and why she has to do this. She then looks away, and she sees a worried Duke there. The girl asks how long she's been lying in bed, to which the guy replies about an hour. Then the girl asks what the doctor said. The Duke replies that she must have been poisoned by something. At this point, the doctor also addresses the young lady. He also asks how she is feeling, and if there is even minor pain, he asks her to let him know. The girl claims that she has nausea and chills, and the doctor asks if that is all, to which the young lady notes that she still has a lung and is having difficulty breathing. She asks if he knows what kind of poison it is. The man replies that although the symptoms are not clear, they indicate the effects of the poison Geriol. At this time, the Duke asks if there is an antidote, but the doctor replies that there is none. The young lady's brother grabs the doctor at this point and cries out, "Is he saying he's not here? If so, then he should get up and go create it." But the man insists that's not the issue. After all, there is simply no need for an antidote, since Her Majesty will recover without it. And he himself is not aware of this, but Her Majesty's body itself resists the effects of the poison, and it is very dangerous since its antidote has not yet been created. At this time, the Duke wonders if she is really resisting on her own, and the main character says that they were worried, but it is not so easy to put her into eternal sleep. The doctor at this time claims that this is not true, and the poison is strong enough that after being ingested, it can eliminate the poor fellow in a couple of hours. At this time, the young lady's brother talks about the protective Gepiton and claims that he has been giving this drug to his sister for 3 years. The medicine helps maintain the immune system normally by resisting toxins. The girl asks what her brother fed her. The doctor says it's fine, and then he'll go and create medicines based on Hepaton. The girl also says it's a good thing I didn't have the desired effect on her body. But that cake was very bitter. Her brother asks if she's talking about the cake, but he claims he asked the servants not to add anything to the cake. The young lady then told Eddie only one thing, and although she was against mixing it, today it saved her life, so she thinks that this topic can be closed. She also has a meeting scheduled for today, so she asks to call the secretary. And the Duke, at this time, approaches Her Majesty and asks what she is talking about. After all, she had just woken up just a couple of minutes ago, having almost fallen into eternal sleep. And now she just needs to rest. But the girl says that she is fine. Her brother tells his sister to keep quiet. However, the young lady insists the matter is urgent because everything must be resolved today. The Duke then asserts that he will take charge of everything and report the rest to her personally, asking her to simply lie still. Eddie insists that Haven is right, and he became her husband to me to play with, and the girl should be more careful before eating until he catches this rat. After which the Duke says exactly what, and if she needs help, just whistle. After which they are about to leave, but Roviel turns to his brother and tells him to wait. After which he claims that when she first opened her eyes, didn't he say don't repeat it? And the girl asks what it was for, after which the young man is silent for a while. Well, then he hugs his little sister and asks if her hearing was damaged due to the illness, and maybe he should call the doctor again. The main character then wonders if she misheard, then says it's unnecessary, and that she must have imagined something like that in her sleep. But the guy tells her to speak up if something hurts, and to tell him, to which she agrees. Well, he says that the first thing he should do is catch the criminal, and the guy claims that he will deal with it. And when he leaves, the girl closes her eyes and understands that there will be a big commotion in the palace. A little while later, she opens her eyes and feels someone's hand on her head. After which she realizes that it is Haven, and the guy turns to Her Majesty with concern, and he claims that she still has a fever, but the girl is only interested in how the meeting went. To which the guy replies that it seems someone needs a cure for workaholism. The girl claims that the position of the 7 Hills is still unstable and it's not time to be a lazy empress. The Duke asks if she wants to be lazy, to which the girl replies that, of course, she doesn't like a life of idleness. The young man then says that in that case, he'll do his best to make her dream come true. He then also hands over the medicine and claims that it was prepared by the court physician. It doesn't taste particularly good, so he advises drinking it all at once. The young lady then does just that. Then the Duke hands her a candy and says that the medicine is so bitter, but she doesn't even wince. To which the girl replies that she is used to the bitter taste and now wants to see the report. After which the guy hands over the papers and claims that the information about the Brandel River is on the last page. The girl claims that this river is actually quite shallow, but it often floods, and the previous emperor's ignoring of this problem forces them to spend a lot of money on maintenance. The guy claims that the workers asked to reduce the scale of the project, but the girl claims that this will not happen. The Duke says it's not about money, but people are asking how they can complete the work on time, and he told them there won't be a labor shortage, so they can start making a work plan. The main character asks what made him say that, to which he replies, "Didn't she plan to send troops there under the pretext of building a dam?" After which the young lady smiles and understands that she is interested in building a dam on the Brandel River, and there are two reasons for this. Of course, this includes restoring the river. It also means deploying their army between southern Dalmoy and eastern Pagos. It only took one meeting for Haven to realize she wanted to pit Hildel and Alkis against each other. After which the girl says that she is pleased to deal with an intelligent partner, and the guy replies that he is glad to hear it. Then the girl is silent for a while, but after that she turns to the Duke and asks, "Was the first time he met Eddie when he was invited to participate in the tournament?" He tells Her Majesty that this is true, and she asks if they've spoken since then. To which the young man replies that no, because Her Majesty ordered her not to meet him alone. The girl claims that this is strange, and that Eddie has been following him for a long time. The young man is a little surprised and asks if that's really true. The young lady replies that yes, otherwise she cannot explain why he chose him, or whether they simply have similar tastes. After which the young lady claims that she really likes the Duke and her brother does too. To which the guy replies that he doesn't know whether to be happy or trembling with fear at this news, but the young lady claims that she is speaking sincerely. She also asks if he's saying he's not happy, and if it's really because of her brother. Haven asserts that he thinks the guy is a good brother to Her Majesty. It's true that sometimes it's difficult for him to understand the reason for his strong attachment to her. The young lady claims that this guy has always been like this because he is a child of thirsty love. After which the Duke asks him to ask, but claims that in his opinion the boys were raised with excessive affection, and now he looks like a bull that is incapable of deciding anything on his own. Well, the main character understands that Edwin in his past life was completely different from what he is now. He, who did not see the love of his parents, grew up in the arms of servants, and his busy, attentive sister did not even look at him. The girl clearly remembers only a few moments from her past life. For example, the day she became a countess. The young lady was tired of listening to the imperial family's remarks or ridicule, which were passed off as congratulations, and she thought only of returning to her room as quickly as possible and lying down on her bed. Roviel returned home, and Edwin was sitting on the stairs with a stuffed rabbit that she played with as a child. It was late at night and he didn't sleep, probably to congratulate her, but the girl snapped at the guy. She asked him why he couldn't sleep, after which he went to his room. The young lady then hated Eddie because, as the youngest in the family, he was free of any responsibility. And the girl regretted this act until she plunged into eternal sleep. But having received a second chance that day, she hugged Eddie with all her might and sincerely thanked him. And now the young lady claims that her brother is funny and that the Duke should just try to get used to it. The boy then asks if this is an order and claims he would never have thought Her Majesty was such a person. The girl then asks what kind of person she is. To which the guy replies that they were strange, and in fact even before the Count visited him. He wanted to meet the lady, although he didn't think that their meeting would take place at that tournament. The main character then asks why, and the guy replies that he was wondering who did it, what he wanted to do. Roviel then asks if Haven wants the imperial throne, and she also thinks that no matter how much she likes him, she can't let him be near her if he wants to take her place. And who else but she knows what a person is capable of for the sake of power, after which the young lady only mentally asks him to say no. The guy then smiles and says that he just wanted to get rid of the former emperor. He is also not interested in the throne itself, and at one time he decided to get rid of the emperor before fighting Gripton. But the emperor changed. During these few months of new management, the empire had completely changed, and so he wanted to see what an outstanding person could do this. The young lady then claims that he must be disappointed, but the boy replies that he is not, and that it is difficult for him to imagine a person who deserves this throne more than her. The main character is a little surprised by this and then says that thank God. She was already thinking about leaving the throne and fighting against her husband. But the guy says she has nothing to worry about, and the young lady claims that she believes him, after which the young man is silent for a while, but then asks why. She trusts him so easily because he entered the palace and soon the girl could die from poison. After which he asks how Her Majesty can trust him after this, and also asks if she knows what medicine he just gave her, and asks why she calmly drank something unknown. Roviel claims that she drank the medicine he gave her because she knows it is an antidote. And the girl wonders if she is mistaken, but the Duke notes that yes, and this is the antidote. Then the young lady asks why he is telling her all this, after which he claims that he trusts Haven. The girl also understands that she feels guilty for the way he reacts, and, frankly, it's not that she believes in the Duke, but she simply trusts her brother's choice, because he could not allow anyone capable of harming her to be near her. At this time, the Duke once again turns to Her Majesty and says that he likes her too. The main character claims that this is good, and the guy with a smile on his face says that in the future. He will definitely steal her heart, after which they are going to kiss the lady. The raccoon stops the Duke, and she claims that she likes people who will steal something from her, after which she suggests that he say otherwise. And the young man claims that he will do everything to make the lady love him, after which the main character claims that this is better. And the guy again reaches out to kiss Her Majesty, but at that very moment someone knocks on the room and the girl tells that person to come in. It turns out to be the butler, and he claims that the chief knight and the first secretary are requesting an audience. The girl says they should come in. When the two enter the room, the Duke states that he will return later, but when he leaves, he glares menacingly at the two. Roviel then asks Cecile why she was looking for her, but the girl tells Her Majesty to punish her for losing sight of the rats in the palace. Roviel says that as the commander of the knights, he can see that she is fine, and he wonders what kind of punishment is being discussed if Cecile was busy carrying out her orders. But the girl says that she should have guessed, after which the main character touches her cheek, and he claims that the criminal cannot be found even now, so the girl should not blame herself. The main character then also asks how Eddie is doing, and the commander of the knights asks for forgiveness for her words, but claims that he is crazy. Eddie ordered that no one leave the imperial palace, but even so, finding the culprit will not be easy. In other words, whoever gave her the poisoned pie was certainly an unusual opponent, but whoever it was, they made a mistake. They should have put her into eternal sleep right away, preventing others from learning of their plans. A little while later, she tells the girl to leave the capture of the rat to Eddie, and the task of the commander of the knights is to find the one who sent this rat to her. After which, the girl also turns to the secretary and claims that she was poisoned. And he asks why he is crying, but the guy only says that Her Majesty should not fall into eternal sleep and that he will work harder, so he asks her to live. The girl then says that she will live and also wipes the ink off his face and claims that if he works so hard, it will be he who will lose his life, not she. The guy insists he has no intention of falling into eternal sleep. A short time later, evening arrives. The Duke brings food and states that it is time for dinner, and when they begin to eat, the girl turns to him and claims that this poison is not scary for her, but it is very scary for him, and if the guy gets poisoned, then how will she get off? The young man then claims that Her Majesty is still weak, and now the poison is dangerous for her, and therefore he will try her food until he recovers. Well, the girl tells him not to force himself, after which the guy turns to Her Majesty, and he claims that the one she took is very dangerous, and it is not suitable for entering into eternal sleep. After all, it's too bitter that it immediately gives it away, and the guy asks why she ate half of it. The girl replies that she thought it was another unusual recipe, but then the Duke turns to Her Majesty, and he tells her not to eat anything with a strange taste in the future. The young lady understands that it's because her brother was mixing medicine into her food. Then she got used to this strange taste, and the girl thinks how she will find out next time that it wasn't he who added something to the food. The Duke then insists that she should ask the Count to warn her if he adds any medication. And the young lady wonders if the boy is reading her mind. Haven claims that nothing can be done about it, so he asks to eat with him in the future. And the main character thinks that when he becomes her husband, he will eat 3 times a day without interrupting work, but for now she needs to keep quiet about it, otherwise he might run away. The guy then claims that if the Count gives her more medicine, he will become healthier, to which the girl replies that yes, she will, so if he doesn't want it, then now is the time to stop. By evening, the girl was already in bed, complaining of being hot. The Duke claimed he'd been told the temperature could rise, but that it was dangerous to do so in the middle of the night. Eddie at this time turns to his sister and claims that he cannot believe that they did this to her, but at the same moment the Duke lightly hits the Count on the head and tells him to get busy catching the criminal after that. How will Her Majesty recover since she has already taken the medicine? All that remains is to beat the temperature. And he asks to help him with this, to which the guy agrees, after which he puts a wet bandage on his sister. The next morning, the girl opens her eyes and sees a worried Duke and her brother in front of her. Eddie asks if sister is okay, and Haven also asks how she feels. The girl gets up and claims that she is fine, just a little hungry. Haven puts his hand to her forehead and says it looks like her fever has gone down. The girl's brother says thank God, but he was so worried. The girl then apologizes for causing so much worry, and the guy says that now that she's okay, he'll be okay. That we can finally figure things out. When the young lady ponders what he's up to, she says no. And no matter what happens, let him not do it, but the guy insists he hasn't said anything yet. The girl then says no in any case, and the guy says he understands, but we must hunt down the one who dared touch the Empress's cake. The poisoner must be caught and punished. The girl claims that Cecile is also conducting an investigation, so let the guy share the information with her and stop scaring the guards. But the young man then insists that he will do as she says. She asks to be allowed to increase her security, as he will accompany her while she changes clothes and washes. The young lady then asks if it has to be him. To which the guy replies that, of course, there is not a single knight in the palace who is capable of protecting her better than him, but he'll bring her one soon, so she should just wait. A little while later, the Duke opens the window to air out the room. Meanwhile, the young lady is drinking tea and realizes that she is tired of lying around and knows better what to do. The girl is also interested in how the secretary is doing. And after all, so much work has fallen on him alone, so she needs to check on him. Then the young lady invites Haven to drop in on Caleb for a minute, but the guy claims that the secretary is not in the palace today. The young lady asks why and is he really ill, and the Duke replies that he is not quite ill. And the Count simply said that he would plunge into eternal sleep everyone who brought work to the palace. Therefore, there are no reports, no meetings, and Her Majesty is not bothered by anything. The girl then claims that she is fine, so let him send everyone back to the palace. The Duke agrees, but insists he must warn her that he will inform the Count if she is meeting anyone that day. The girl then orders him not to tell, but the young man apologizes and insists he would prefer to maintain the Count's trust. The young lady then says that she told him to stay away from him, and the guy claims that this is not the issue, and it was his idea to simply relieve her of work today. The guy also asks if she's thinking about it, that if you allow yourself a day off, the empire will find itself in trouble or even fall apart. After which he kneels before Her Majesty and claims that she is the one who saved the 7 hills from the previous emperor, and the one who raised this empire. He understands her attachment to the empire. However, she will not be able to do everything at once and see that she is an empress and not a god. And besides, she still has a fever, so he asks her to rest today. The girl realizes that she never considered herself a god. Her position carries a lot of responsibility, so she just tries to do what she has to do. But Haven is right, she can't know what will happen, and maybe she really should worry less about the empire. His words make sense, and the problems will only increase if she works too much, so the girl decides that today will be a day off. Well, she also says that if something urgent happens, she wants to see the report and also let the secretaries return to work. She also claims that she doesn't know what to do during her vacation and is tired of sitting around doing nothing, but she has nothing to do with herself other than work. The young man embarrassed, remains silent after this, and claims that in that case, they could continue. They were interrupted last time, and the main character wonders what he's talking about. Then she remembers how the guy was reaching out to kiss her. And when she comes out of her thoughts, she sees that the Duke is approaching her again, after which the girl closes her eyes. But at that very moment, someone knocks on the door, and the young lady states that it will have to be postponed again. Then she also tells this man to come in, and the butler claims that he brought a list of medicines that the Count gave to Her Majesty. The girl understands that there are 3 types of medications she must take weekly, 5 types each season, and then there are medications she must take once a year. The Duke claims that with such a list, she clearly has no fear of any illness. He also claims that there are even Cynthia's flowers there, and few people know about them. The young lady asks what they are, and the guy claims that this flower grows in a certain place in the northern region, and it is a valuable drug, so it seems that the Count has done a lot of research. And it's immediately clear how much he values the young lady, but he's even jealous that he doesn't have such a brother. The main character claims that her brother is very sensitive to her health, after which the Duke says that she is his only relative, so it is not surprising that he does not care. The young lady understands that she knows what is in his soul, and Edwin is all she has left from her family, so if he disappears again, and she won't receive any news from him, then the girl won't survive this. However, even if we put aside the value of family, does anyone usually act like Eddie? And if you think about it, something strange is happening. The girl also remembers him saying that this couldn't happen again, and she thinks what he meant, after which the girl turns to the Duke and tells him to call Eddie to her. The girl understands that she did not think about this, but a miracle happened, and this time she will live a better life, so now she thinks that the time has come to get answers to all the questions. A little while later, the guy opens the door slightly and thinks whether he should go in. Well, at that moment, the main character turns to him, and he immediately runs up to his little sister. He also asks her to forgive him. The girl wonders if he's already done something wrong, and the guy claims that she is talking about the fact that he ordered not to let anyone into the palace today, and the girl asks if he didn't want her to just rest. To which the guy replies, "Of course." And then she asks about the pile of medicine. But the young lady asks what's so special about that, and the guys insist it must be something. Then she says he's prepared everything necessary to put any of the dukes into eternal sleep if one turns out to be a traitor. And the young lady then asks what he is talking about, after which the guy asks, "Really?" The sister found out that he got rid of Count Balfort, after which the girl tells him to stop. And he says how much he does without her knowledge, but the guy only asks if she is angry, after which the girl tells him to sit down. Eddie does so and also tells sister not to show off, because he won't do it again. The girl replies that she's not angry, she just wants to ask something. Then the young man asks what it is. And the girl understands that her younger brother, nicknamed a fool, doesn't care what she does. But it's strange how sharply he reacts to her health problems. And perhaps he knows that once she already fell ill and plunged into eternal sleep. After all, if that's the case, then how could the guy have found out about it? And even in his previous life, he didn't return to the county until she fell into eternal sleep. The girl also wonders whether he heard about her illness from someone else and what he did after that. But it is possible that he, like her, returned to the past along with his memories. So now the young lady turns to Eddie and asks if he has been reborn too. The guy is simply surprised by this and asks his sister if she remembers her past life. To which the girl replies that yes, and she remembers everything that happened to her until she fell into eternal sleep. The guy then says that this is impossible, and the time stone was supposed to preserve only his memories. And the young lady wonders what kind of time stone this is, after which her brother turns to her, and he asks if she remembers everything for sure, to which the girl replies that she does, and asks if he knows why. Then the young lady also tells the guy not to say that he turned back time. The young man then claims that the Duke once told him that there was a legend according to which one could turn back time, and he did not plan to check whether it was true. But when the girl returned, she had already fallen into eternal sleep, and on the last day of her funeral, he found a letter written by her. He also still remembers every word in it, and he feels very sorry for his little sister because he didn't think that she would wait for him. He also thought that she hated him, so he decided not to interfere in family affairs. Roviel asks why she would hate the guy, and he replies that she suffered so much every day and he didn't help her at all, and on the day of his coming of age, people came to him and showered him with compliments. And they also said that the time had come to return his family to himself, So if he had known earlier that this would happen because of them, he was supposed to plunge them all into eternal sleep. The main character then asks if that's why he ran away, and the guy claims that she raised their family with such difficulty, and he was afraid that she would misunderstand him and decide that he wanted to take her place. The main character then jumps up from her seat and hits the guy on the head. After which, with tears in his eyes, he cries out what a fool he is and how could he really run away because of such nonsense. And yet she had been looking for him for so long. At this time, the guy, confused, asks his sister not to cry, but then screams that she is not crying. Eddie claims he only later found out she was looking for him, but she asks how he could leave home penniless and if he should have grabbed something before leaving. She then also asks where he was. The guy replies that he went north and stopped there and also became friends with Duke DeHard, and later heard about the time stone. She and the Duke were planning an uprising, and he came home to warn her because he was afraid that she would interfere. Well, he was told the girl had already fallen into eternal sleep. Now the young lady is hugging her brother back, and she understands that he has matured and has also become much taller than her. But he behaves just like a child. And he cried so bitterly that day, so now the reason is clear to her. It also becomes clear why the boy was able to overthrow the previous emperor in such a short time. It must have been because of the preparation in his past life that it was easy for him now, and he knew who would support the rebellion. He gave her the empress's place, which rightfully belonged to him, so the girl wonders why he's always involved in rebellions. After which, the young lady also asks if this means he received the time stone from the Duke and wonders if Haven also remembers his past life, to which the guy replies that he doesn't think so. The girl asserts that she too remembers, even though she shouldn't. And didn't the stone originally belong to the Duke? Her brother claims that if he had remembered, he would have killed it the moment he saw it. The young lady wonders why, and the guy claims he stole that stone. Roviel then sits down on the sofa, and she realizes she doesn't even know where to begin scolding him. Then the girl also says that he invited the Duke to the tournament because he knew him before. The lady's brother remarks that he is the strongest man he's ever known, and he is not interested in power, so he does not think that he will harm his sister. But the girl claims that he said that the Duke was preparing a rebellion, and did not he want to become emperor. After which Eddie replies that no, their Duke simply hated the previous emperor, and that was before the war. The main character asks what kind of war it is, and the guy replies that Zilton has allied with the Gripton Empire, and together they gathered to attack their empire, but the previous emperor did nothing even when he received the reports. In the end, everyone decided to get rid of him, because with such a fool behind them, there was no question of victory. All the hype will start around next year, so he asks his sister, what about Togo? To unite the continents right now, and he will make her the first empress to unite the entire continent. The main character is shocked after this, and the guy claims that he has made a decision, and this time he will do whatever he wants for her. However, the young lady claims that no, and she will appreciate his kindness, but she does not need the unification of the continent. After which the guy replies that he will give her this continent, because the war will start anyway, and he must win. But after this, the girl only pulls her brother by the cheeks and also tells him to listen. After all, she's really content with just ruling the Seven Hills Empire and has no intention of uniting the continent, nor will she do so. After that, she even screams at him not to do it. Roviel realizes that she doesn't care about the unification of the continent, but 4 years later, Gripton will invade her empire. And if they join Zilton and attack, then the northern lands will become a battlefield. And then those two, Haven and Edwin, will leave the imperial capital. In that case, even Finland won't be able to fight Pagos and Delma. It's also impossible to know what Janice Skyer would do in a critical situation, so she can't simply leave things as they are. Now the young lady only sighs, and the boy asks his sister what happened and what she's worried about. The girl replies that, of course, she's heard about the war, and that's why she's worried. The guy then claims that she has a duke, and that is why they always win, so she shouldn't worry, but the girl asks if he even thought about those who would lose. And does he really think that war is just about waving swords? After all, it's about gradual expansion, and if the war is won, the territory will be expanded, and the more land they have, the more work they need to do. After which the young lady says that okay, and first he will catch this bastard, and they will also use this opportunity to push back the East. The young lady claims that if Pagos is behind all of this, then they should first tell her everything, and if this will help weaken the East, then she will also prepare. The guy agrees and then tells Her Majesty that he'll go. And when the guy leaves, then the young lady turns to him and talks about the old days. Then she apologizes for turning her back on him. And it's not because she hates him, but because she's tired and she really wanted to tell him that. After which, the young lady thanks him for being there and giving her a chance. The guy then says that she raised him. After which he turns around and says that he will go and will return soon, so let the girl rest. But when he opens the door, he meets the Duke. And when Haven looks at the guy's face, he sees that he's almost crying with joy. When the Duke enters the room, he turns to Her Majesty and says that he is her brother. However, the girl interrupts the guy and says that he is too cute and also claims that it is true. The Duke says yes, and he really is very cute, after which the main character claims that he really likes Haven and he is so charming. At this time, the Duke asks the lady to take back her terrible words, but the girl claims that it is true, after which she shows the Duke to sit next to her. She also understands that thanks to Haven, she has another chance, and she wants to thank him and apologize at the same time, but she can't say it. After which, the girl also turns to Haven and asserts that she will treat him well. And also, if there is a need, then let him ask for anything and it doesn't matter how much it costs, because she won't object. The guy then apologizes, but claims that he would be glad if he knew why she suddenly said this. The girl then asks if there's any other reason for being nice to him, and if she just really likes him. She claims he has big problems because he feels happy hearing such lies. And it also seems like they talked about a lot with the Count, and he told her not to worry because the two of them would personally take care of this war. After which, the guy claims he doesn't particularly share the Count's beliefs, but he can't help but agree with him on this. The girl asks if they're really talking about how Zilton and Gripton united and invaded the Empire. The guy just smiles after this, and the main character claims that he looks so confident. The Duke also claims that, as he has already said, the North is still in a state of war, and all necessary preparations have also been completed. And the main character says it's good that he's so reliable, but before that, she needs to make sure of everything thoroughly. The guy says he was ready for the conversation, as he said. And also, after the Seven Hills defeat Zilton, other empires will also begin to move, so for now. He asks if she intends to unite the continent, and the young lady understands that the guy's train of thought is very similar to Eddie's, after which the girl says no, but the guy still offers to try. But after this, the young lady only screams that no and turns away from him. The Duke only laughs at this gesture and also claims that he thinks he has fallen in love with her decisive image. But the girl claims that no matter what he says, it won't work, after which the guy takes her hand in his. And he kisses her, and also says that if Her Majesty does not want, then he will not force her. Well, if she changes her mind, then let her tell him at any time, and he will always be on her side. The young lady then thinks what a rude guy this is, and after that incident she felt better. When the girl entered the secretary's office, he was lying on the papers as if he was dead. However, when he saw Her Majesty, he immediately stood up and turned to her with concern. The girl then told him not to cry because she was there, and the guy asked if she shouldn't rest more, and if she was okay. A little while later, the girl sits down at her desk and tells Haven to pick up documents that could reflect the intentions of other empires and bring them there. The guy agrees to this, and the young lady also turns to Caleb and says that in the near future, they will prioritize documents related to the situation in the southeast. The guy then turns to Her Majesty and claims that the documents sent from the palace must be approved today. The girl then takes them and asks what is there about the guy who claims that these are documents concerning Her Majesty's engagement. Then the girl understands that their engagement will take place tomorrow afternoon. But she is so busy, and the girl thinks why the engagement will suddenly take place so early. But she also understands that if she doesn't do this, Haven will be disappointed. Therefore, the girl signs the document and understands that engagement and marriage are not easy. After the girl had settled all the urgent matters that had accumulated while she was sick, at the afternoon meeting, a proposal was made to build a dam on the Brandel River. First, about 5,000 soldiers will be sent to the south. As soon as they can hire a professional inspector to lead the project's financing, They will begin sending troops to support the dam project. The girl was also going to talk directly to Eddie, but he said that he would come late, and the girl wondered where he was. A short time later, someone approaches Her Majesty and states that the head of the inspection team department has arrived. The main character then tells Cecil that it's okay and she's going, and even if she hadn't come, she was still going to call her. The blonde then asks Her Majesty to forgive her, and also claims that she was unable to gather the information she requested. The young lady understands that since the failed poisoning attempt, there have been no more suspicious movements, and if this man is trying to put her into eternal sleep, he most likely desires the throne. And since this attempt failed, perhaps he is now lying low. Well, she still understands that it is absolutely obvious that there is someone who wants her to plunge into eternal sleep. And if this is not an attempt to seize the empire, then they simply hate her. But the girl wonders if it is even possible to put people into eternal sleep for such a reason. At this time, the blonde asks the lady if she knows who the culprit is, to which she replies that she doesn't. And there's too many people there, which surprises the commander, and the girl realizes that the first ones are the ones she threatened to behead. The second group are those whose information she used. There are also people whose businesses failed because of it. Of course, thanks to this, their family became rich, but more and more people began to harbor a grudge. The commander of the knights at this time claims that if the lady tells who they are, she will carefully study each of them. But the girl replies that no, and if at least one of them was a criminal, Edwin would have already found out. So let Cecil focus on Pagos and Delma's every move. The girl also suggests continuing to investigate the relationship between Zilton and Gripton. The blonde then agrees. The main character asks if she knows where her brother is now. The knight commander claims that Count Satin left for the west yesterday afternoon. The young lady then wonders why he left for the west, and Cecil asks if she should find out more detailed information, to which the main character replies that it is not necessary because they are so short of manpower and when all the work is done he will return himself. After which the blonde agrees and also asks when the White Owl operation will begin. Roviel realizes that the knight commander not only came up with a way to aggravate the dispute between Hildel and Alcides, but even gave a name to this operation. And Operation White Owl consists of the fact that these two territories have been fighting for a long time to capture the Delpin mountain mines. Moreover, it was a planned sabotage designed to crush Pagos and Delmoy. According to the plan, workers disguised as county people will pretend to be engaged in mining operations, which is intended to anger the Hildel family. This misunderstanding will make the Hildel family feel insulted by Count Alkis. Hildel will become enraged and declare war on Alkis for this territory. The girl also thinks that they will need to discuss the rest with Eddie, because it is not just one or two things that need to be talked about. Thanks to the county of Delmoy, which held Pagos and Hildel at bay, the story now ends with Alkis gaining the mining rights to those mines. And now if she shakes hands with Hildel and Delma, the conflict in the southeast will move to a new stage. The girl also claims that the first team will leave next week, and they cannot begin to act according to plan. The knight commander assures Her Majesty that she will lead the team without any problems, and their main heroines say that it is good, and that the growth of the canal will also send a report on the approval of the mine development plan to Viscount Hildel. After which the knight agrees, and the main character wonders if she has done everything she planned for today. But then she remembers that she still needs to prepare the documents regarding the engagement, and she completely forgot about it. The girl is also thinking about something, but then she hears a knock on the door, and when she turns around, he sees the Duke there and realizes he's just in time. The young lady then turns to the boy and asks him to come with her to a certain place. After which she realizes that no matter how busy they are, tomorrow will be their engagement, and she has never given gifts to her fiancé, who worked so hard to get into this palace, so it is worth giving him an award for the excellent job he did. At this time, the guy opens one of the doors and asks if he should go in there, and the girl replies that yes, and he thinks that there is no need to go far, because this place is also full of treasures and their ancestors, after which the two of them enter the room. The young lady claims that there are many precious treasures there, and moreover, some of them are amazing to look at. The guy at this time looks at one of them and claims that it is Volyo, and that it is also a symbol of one of the 7 families that founded the empire. This legendary bird that I helped the Trebia family with, and they say that thanks to this bird, the family was able to seize power over the royal family. The main character looks at this statue and wonders if this is really the legendary bird. And she also wonders if it was possible that one of her eyes was sold by the previous emperor. The girl understands that the guy could have chosen something much more expensive, but it seems he liked this bird. After which, the young lady claims that if he liked her, she will give him this bird. And this is her engagement gift, and if he doesn't like this bird, then let him choose something else. The young man then tells Her Majesty that there's no need for that, and asks what he did to deserve such a gift. However, the young lady merely tells him to choose, and the guy claims that if she really wants to give him something, he would like to spend more time with her. The young lady is a little surprised by this and asks how much more. The Duke replies that 1 hour a day would be wonderful, and he wants to spend time with Her Majesty no matter what. The young lady then thinks that for some reason he looks very sincere and wonders why. After which the girl realizes that she is forcing him to look through documents all day. They also eat together, fearing she'll be poisoned again. But eventually, the girl wonders what the reason could be. The Duke wants to be near her even during rest periods, after which the young lady says that if it's only an hour a day, there won't be any problem. But she doesn't understand what he means by asking her to spend the whole day with her. The guy replies that it's better for them to slowly get to know each other, like yesterday. The young lady then realizes the engagement is tomorrow, and all she knows about her fiancé is that he's a good worker and has warm lips. After which the girl says that yes, they will do that, but he must choose a gift because she also wants to give him something. After which the guy looks at the eye of this bird and claims that if she insists, then he will take this stone. The young lady then thinks that he chose exactly this anyway, and it's such a small thing. And so the evening with Haven began. The girl says they've come a long way, so she suggests they rest and then move on, to which the guy agrees. After which, the young lady sits down and the Duke claims that Her Majesty moves too little. The girl claims that leading a sedentary lifestyle is normal, but the young man says that it is harmful to her health. Roviel is interested in dispelling. He said that she will live a long time considering the amount of medicine she takes, but Haven claims that he didn't know about her stamina, so that's why he said so. The girl claims that even though she looks weak, she copes with her duties and lives well, after which the girl says that it seems that her brother will not return today. But if she doesn't see Eddie, she always has a premonition of impending disaster. The Duke then asks if the girl is talking about the Count. He also says that, in his opinion, the Count isn't someone to worry about. The girl, however, insists that she worries about anything, but not about this child, after which Haven says it's clear and the main character just smiles. Then she asks if the boy had any brothers or sisters, to which he replies that no, and that he is the only child in the family. But the girl asks, who then rules the duchy, to which the guy replies that his uncle, and the girl claims that it seems he trusts his uncle a lot since he left his territory to him. Haven claims that he is one of those who wanted him to fall into eternal sleep in Finland, but as a manager, he is a reliable person. The main character is then surprised and asks why exactly such a person, and his immersion into eternal sleep is a huge loss for the Seven Hills, so he must live long and this is in order. The girl also asks how an uncle could possibly want such a thing for his nephew and whether she should intervene. Well, the guys respond that maybe he doesn't see him as a nephew. The main character asks what this means, after which the young man remains silent and touches his hair, and the main character realizes that his hair is ash gray. Everyone in the ducal family has black hair and eyes. Now the young lady says, what nonsense is this? Hair color doesn't have to be the same. Haven claims his mother didn't recover quickly after his birth, so he was over 2 years old when he set foot in the ducal castle. His parents are brunettes, and he is like that. That's why many people say that he is not related to the Dehards. Hey, uncle is one of them. The young lady then says how much harm they've done to the child, and that it definitely needs to be punished, and that all of that man's hair needs to be pulled out. The guy then claims that he doesn't really care, but the girl claims that this is out of the question and that they insulted him and his mother, so she will make them stop saying this nonsense. But the guy claims that it is true and his parents adopted him, and after they plunged into eternal sleep, he and Her Majesty now know the truth. The girl then asks what this has to do with her desire to shut their mouths, and his uncle should pull his mouth back on his head to calm down. The Duke merely smiles after this and begs Her Majesty for mercy. He also asserts that if he marries her, he will relinquish his position as her uncle's duke, and he will feel a little awkward about doing so after her punishment. The young lady understands that even if he smiles like that, things won't get better for her, and after Haven became her husband, she only now learns that he wants to give up the duchy. The girl also wonders if it is necessary to go to such lengths, and whether it is really too difficult to hide her adoption while being a duke. But then she realizes that there is something else there, and adopted children are also children, so everything is fine as long as he has a title and he rules well. After which, the young lady asks why he participated in the tournament, and whether it was to cede the title to his father's biological brother. The Duke replies that it's not that, and that he learned it from someone some time ago, that in order to prove her skill she needs to take on great responsibility, and as the leader of the server he came to Her Majesty to protect it. The main character is a little surprised by this and then says that whoever it is, he's right. The young man insists that he's an outstanding person. The young lady then realizes that she doesn't care whether the guy came there with any intentions or simply ran away due to a lack of confidence. And this is a matter of feelings, but she is glad that her future husband is not a fool who is unable to defend himself because of shame in front of his relatives. After which the young lady tells him not to worry about anything, because he will become her husband, and the territory of Dayhard is part of her empire, so she will definitely protect him. The guy then says that he will become the sword that protects Her Majesty, and the girl claims that he speaks just like her brother, and it looks like she will now be able to swing a double sword, after which the guy just smiles and the girl gets up and extends her hand to him. He also claims that it's already late, after which he suggests going back, to which the guy agrees. And after that, they return to the palace. Eddie later failed to appear at the ceremony, and the girl thought that he would in any case find time to attend her engagement, but because of his words about traveling to the West, she was a little worried. And she was worried not so much about her brother, but about the West itself. The girl also entrusted Eddie with the care of the army, but she didn't care about the child, so she had to choose the leader herself. She also plans to send soldiers under the pretext of building a dam, so she'll have to maintain the cover story until Eddie returns. But one of the 4 powerful ducal families is approaching its demise, and this is the first step towards wiping Eastern Pagos off the face of the earth. And after Pagos disappears from the map, the collected money will be the most coveted loot, and it will also destroy the tax-free life of the 4 duchies. The girl also thinks that the mere thought of collecting Pagos's wealth makes her happy. After which, the young lady enters the hall and sees her future husband there. The guy only smiles as he looks at her, and the main character smiles back at him. Then she says that maybe she should take care of him, and about the arrogant Duke Dehard who ignored the invitation to their official engagement. After which they approach the throne, and the priest states that by order of the Empress the Duke will be given the title of Marquis. And the young lady, looking at the Dehard family, wonders why they look so tense, and where are their congratulations, and aren't they related to the previous Duke? It's a shame the uncle she so eagerly wanted to meet didn't show up. The girl also understands that she is going to get rid of him if he starts to get impudent, but in any case, he is not there. O priest claims that from now on Her Majesty Empress Rovielle Seton and Duke Haven Dehard are engaged. A little while later, the girl approaches one of the aristocrats and claims that today is such a wonderful day. The guy, in shock, asks if this is really Her Majesty, and the other aristocrats who are whispering to him begin to disperse. After which, the guy seemed to ask if Her Majesty was really addressing him. The girl, smiling, indicated that she had come to see him. Then she asked why he didn't congratulate the Duke. And the atmosphere in the evening is not the most pleasant when everyone has such gloomy faces, after which the guy turns to the Duke and is silent for a while. But the man claims that Her Majesty ordered congratulations, and this guy wonders whether congratulations are really necessary and whether this is definitely not a will. After which, he and the other aristocrats joyfully congratulate Her Majesty and the Duke. One of them also asks how they can look so harmonious together and whether this item is part of their empire. The young lady then looks at the table and realizes that this is not the reaction she expected. A little while later, they are already starting to eat, and the girl realizes that it is time to think about this. When the boy was still little, he was surrounded by people who did not believe in his origin. Well, he really was adopted, and that's why he grew up to be a wonderful duke who copes with the tasks assigned to him perfectly. The girl also thinks that Haven didn't say that after becoming a duke, he dealt with his ill-wishers, and the young lady wonders what he did. Meanwhile, the boy asks Her Majesty if she needs anything, and Roviel replies that no, and she just wanted to make sure that the guy eats well, after which she tells him to eat more. At this time, other aristocrats sit at the table in an oppressive atmosphere, but when the duke looks at them, then they immediately smile, and the main character thinks how they can change so quickly from just one look. A little while later, the commander of the knights also congratulates Her Majesty and claims that she heard the Empress calling her. The main character replies that yes, and she wants to ask what the relationship is between Haven and the nobles of the north, and maybe there were some scandals. After which the commander of the knights asks if she means Duke de Hard. But she heard that the Duke considers the northern nobles parasites and keeps them in check. The protagonist understands that this is to be expected, and she claims that she heard in the ducal family there were many assumptions about Haven's birth. The blonde says that while Sir Haven has not yet matured, his uncle, who is the current deputy, is their Duke of Trwyd. Rumor has it that he tried his best to get rid of his nephew. But then the blonde wants to say something else and stops, and the young lady asks what happens next. After which the commander of the knights claims that on the day of his coming of age, Sir Haven shaved the Duke of Tryd's beard with a sword. They also say he was aiming for the neck, but ultimately decided to limit himself to the beard. Either way, he went that far. Roviel wonders if he really was seriously planning to chop off and execute his uncle, and it turns out he's capable of such a thing. But in any case, the engagement ended happily, and now Haven has become the reserve ruler of the Empire of the Seven Hills. The 5,000-strong army reached the southeast, and they went to the Brandel River. She also negotiated with the 7 talents stolen by Edwin and won over several people. And besides, the architect Ninzel happily took on the construction of the Brandel Dam, and finally, Edwin returned. The guy turns to his sister and claims she said she had a meeting, but wonders if she left too early. The young lady then realizes that her brother has returned with an impressive blonde girl. Roviel then tells his brother that she forbade him to leave for a long time and asks if this is true, to which the guy replies that it is. And the main character pulls him by the cheeks and screams, why the hell was he gone for 10 days? He knows how worried she was. The guy then tries to say through his cheeks that he was wrong and apologize to his sister. After which, the girl just sighs, and the young man asks if she is angry. And he also says that he didn't do it on purpose, but the young lady says that if he just tries to do it on purpose, he will fall into eternal sleep at her hands. But seriously, she asks if there was some kind of accident that kept him so late. He asks if she's talking about an accident and insists everything is fine. And the main character asks who this lady is then, and the young man claims that he heard that there is a doctor specializing in poisons and had to pursue her for a long time, but in the end they managed to meet. They talked, and the guy convinced her to come there, and now he'll formally introduce her. Afterward, the young man claims he's her new personal knight. But after that, silence falls between them. Then the Empress breaks it and claims she was talking to Eddie. No more kidnapping people, but the guy tells his sister that everything is not so and she agreed to become her bodyguard. The young lady then asks if he is serious, to which the guy replies that yes, and he is not lying. After which they both look at the lady with blonde hair, and she says that she is pleased to meet Her Majesty, but when the girl is about to introduce herself, at that very moment, the commander of the knights runs into the room and asks Her Majesty and the Count to forgive her for her impolite intrusion. But the matter is urgent. Roviel then tells Cecile to tell him, and the girl claims that the Duke's heir, Janice Schuyler, has been kidnapped. She also heard that she was currently in Finland. This girl is the second daughter of Duke Schuyler and was last seen. However, the main character at this time looks at the girl in surprise, after which she only smiles. She also says that she is very happy to meet them, and her name is Janice Schuyler. After this, they are all silent again, but the young lady's brother does not click and immediately leaves the room. He also says he loves his little sister very much. When the guy leaves, the main character sighs and asks if the girl tells him her name is Janice. The blonde answers Her Majesty that yes, and the main character asks if she wants to be her personal knight. Janice replies that she will protect Her Majesty and is devoted to carrying out her orders. Their main character says that is good, and then she gives her the first task, after which he tells the girl to go and transfer this bastard, to which the blonde agrees. And when she leaves, the young lady turns to the commander of the knights and asks when the Duke will arrive in Finland. Cecile replies that in 3 or 4 days. Roviel asks if the Duke knows that Eddie kidnapped Janice. The knight replies that he definitely does, after which the main character asks why her brother did that. He's not the type to do what she forbade him. And the girl doesn't look like someone who was brought there against her will. The knight commander claims that it all actually began with the escape of Janice Skyer in a duchy located west of the imperial capital. Duke Skyer's second daughter is Janice Skyer. Even as a child, she surpassed her brother and sister. So she was raised as the heir to the duchy, but she ran away the day after her 18th birthday. Hearing that his daughter, who had run away from home, was with Eddie, the Duke went to Finland to get her back. And the commander of the knights claims that probably because of the previous kidnapping and famous people, the Duke mistakenly believed that Eddie had kidnapped Janice. The young lady then says that's fine, and asks if her brother is innocent. Cecile replies that he is, and the young lady claims that if the girl has reached adulthood and decided to leave, then this must be a conscious decision. After which she tells Cecile that they can go, because she wants to visit these two. Well, when they go outside, the main character sees these two fighting. At this moment, the young lady's brother cries out, "Has the girl really gone crazy? And why the hell did she pull out the sword?" But Janice screams at the bastard to just shut up and investigate behind her. The guy then screams, "Who is that bastard?" And the girl replies that Her Majesty called him that. Eddie then screams that even if she said something like that, she has no right to say such a thing. But the blonde insists that Her Majesty's words cannot be denied. Meanwhile, the protagonist turns to Cecile, and he claims that this time he will write a letter of thanks from the Emperor, or even 2. But the girl replies that, although Her Majesty's writing skills warm her heart, there are things beyond her strength. At this time, someone else approaches Her Majesty, and the main character sees that it is Haven, after which she turns to him, and he asks if he can separate them, to which the guy agrees and then does so, and also lifts the two of them up by their clothes and claims that Her Majesty told them both to stop. The blonde then apologizes to Her Majesty and claims that the Count refused to follow her orders. The boy, with a smile on his face, tells his sister that he's to blame. After which, the main character tells Cecile to take Janice to the valet, and the girl should follow Cecile, as she'll prepare her room. Then the young lady also turns to her brother and asks him to give her a minute, to which he agrees. When the Empress turns to Haven to thank him, the two glare at each other again. Roviel also asks if the boy will go first, as she needs to discuss something with her brother. Haven says that it is not scary and he will wait, to which the young lady agrees. And when the girl talks to her brother, he says he really didn't kidnap the girl. The young lady claims she heard she escaped, and her brother replies that, yes, that's why he doesn't want to go home. Roviel also asks Eddie if he knew Janice before, to which he replies that, yes, and that they crossed paths in the north. The main character smiles and asks if they'd only crossed paths and if they'd been close. The guy blushes and says, no, not at all. They also don't understand each other, and this girl is a bit strange. Roviel then wonders if he really assigned a strange man to be his sister's bodyguard, and the guy claims that she is one of the strongest women in his memory. After which the young lady claims that he has not changed at all, and when they sit down, the girl insists that, after all, she came there of her own free will and they can't return her to the Duke. Eddie insists that she ran away because she doesn't want to become a duchess, and even if they return her to the duchy, she will likely stay there. Roviel also asks if her brother managed to find the one who mixed the poison, but the guy apologizes and says no. The girl argues that it could have been a personal grudge, and that perhaps she should look among those she crossed while she was a countess. Eddie claims that he dug everything up but will check again, after which the girl replies that no, and once is enough. She also understands that she questioned all the courtiers who had any connection to the poisoned pie, but no one confessed. And then Eddie took up the investigation, but she doesn't think the criminal could lie to him completely. The culprit is still unknown, but all suspects have been exiled, and Eddie has even searched beyond the palace, but to no avail. After which, the girl offers to leave him alone, and if this man is aiming for her life, then he will try to plunge her into eternal sleep again, but the young man claims that his sister is in danger and wonders if he should really wait. The young lady claims that Haven is next to her and tries her food first. And the guy also brought the strongest bodyguard in the empire, so what is there to worry about? And besides, because of his cure for the poison, she can no longer easily fall into eternal sleep. Well, the guy then wants to object to his sister, but she tells him not to be upset, because the investigation is ongoing and the guards will continue to look for the culprit. After which the young man agrees and claims that among her knights he is the strongest. The girl then says, of course, and the young man claims he's stronger than Janice. The protagonist then asks, what about Haven and whether he's also stronger? The young man claims he was the strongest in his past life, but in this one, he's been wielding a sword since childhood, and the young woman asks if he's superior. To which the guy replies that they are almost equal, and the Duke has been training much longer than him, so he is still stronger, but he will be the strongest and is confident of it. The main character strokes her brother's head and says that she has no doubt that their Eddie is a genius swordsman. A little while later, the young lady also approaches Haven, and he smiles and asks if they had a good conversation. The girl then replies yes, and asks how long he waited. She also understands that she has nothing to worry about. After all, Eddie and Haven are right next to her. A little while later, Janice enters the room. Dressed in a knight's uniform, the main character greets her. The girl then thanks Her Majesty for the invitation, and Roviel tells the girl to sit down, after which they begin their meal. And the main character understands that, apparently, the girl has firmly decided to stay in Falenda, but it is better to clarify everything with her herself. She then turns to Janice and claims that Duke Skyer will soon arrive at the Imperial Palace for her and asks if she plans to go home with him. The knight replies that she is an adult, that she just found a job, and if Her Majesty fires her, she will go look for another job, but she will not return to Skyer. Roviel insists she has no intention of dismissing the girl, and, since she's made up her mind, she'll persuade the Duke to keep her there. The young lady also understands that this girl is apparently hiding deep wounds. Janice thanks Her Majesty for her understanding, but she asks to be allowed to ask an extra question and asks why the girl does not want to return to the ducal house. Janice claims that she must not return, otherwise her brother or sister will not become the Duke's successors. The main character then thinks that she understands, and that Eddie was similar to Janice in his past life. He ran away from home to give her the county. Meanwhile, the blonde claims they dumped everything on her, and they did absolutely nothing, so now let them obey their mother. She really wanted to go back to see it. Meanwhile, Roviel was wondering what had happened. Meanwhile, the blonde claims that she will never return home and will give her life to protect Her Majesty, so she can be sure of it. Roviel wonders if the girl really hates the house so much that it is better to plunge into eternal sleep than to return there, and what can the Duke do to counter such a mood? Skyer's heir, having fled to the Imperial Palace, creates a perfect opportunity to secure Western support, who always remained a bystander. After which the young lady intentionally apologizes to Janice, but she's not about to let this opportunity slip by in her dealings with the West. She's also wondering if everything will go according to plan. Within a few days, Janice had adapted perfectly to work in the Imperial Palace. She also left her post only to sleep and conscientiously performed her duties as a bodyguard. 3 days later, Roviel gave her the day off for the first time, and that was the day when Dietrich Skyer arrived at the palace for her daughter. The woman then turns to Her Majesty and states that her name is Dietrich Skyer. After which she also points to the box and claims that this is a gift from her for her coronation. The main character is thinking about what to give this now, in the 5th month of her accession to the throne. This is somehow weak, and the girl tells Dietrich Skyer to sit down because she must be tired after such a long journey. The woman then thanks Her Majesty but claims that she does not see her daughter, and she heard that she became Her Majesty's personal knight. The young lady understands that she can hear the words, "Give me back my daughter," coming from her, and that I feel sorry for her, of course. But the Duchess won't get it, and it's better to talk about more interesting things. The girl then approaches the Duchess and claims Janice took the day off due to illness. The woman then asks if she's actually sick. and the main character replies that there is no need to worry because she is just pretending. After which, the woman turns to Her Majesty and claims that she is too generous. Raz allows the knight such things? But Roviel claims that Janice is extremely talented and is willing to overlook some of her whims. The Duchess then argues that she could be used for something more useful. To which the young lady replies that she will agree, but what can she do if she wants to be near her? The Duchess then turns to Her Majesty and says that if she is going to get her princess, she had better give up this idea. Well, the girl also says that the Duchess should not forget that her daughter's life is in her hands. Therefore, she should be more careful, and besides, the life of the Duchess is also in her hands. The woman then asks if Her Majesty is threatening her now. The girl replies that she has become Empress. After plunging into the eternal sleep of the past emperor and wondering if the woman thinks she won't be able to behead anyone else. After this, the woman only sighs and says that Her Majesty is more interesting than the rumors she heard about her, and she also apologizes for her rudeness. And yet, as a countess and as a grieving mother, she asks me to let her daughter go. But the girl tells the Duchess not to bother. After all, Janice came to her of her own free will and can leave whenever she wants. Roviel also understands that returning to them is fortunate, but not a burning desire. The woman also asks if the lady needs anything from the Duchy of Skyer. The young lady replies that absolutely nothing. After which the Duchess tells her to speak frankly, and they do not trust each other, so they offer to make a deal to separate peacefully. But the Empress turns to the Duchess once again and asserts that she did say that she doesn't need anything from her. Roviel understands that she will cleanse Pagos and then Delmoy and prepare for war with other powers. The main thing is that no one dares to stand in her way, and in other words, it only plays into her hands. If Skyer sits quietly and does not interfere with what is happening in the outside world. Meanwhile, the woman promises Her Majesty that the Duchy of Skyer will follow her will. Roviel asserts that this is wonderful, and that it would be much better if they could trust each other more in the future. To which the woman tells Her Majesty, of course, but asks to be allowed to ask whether her daughter really said herself that she wants to become her bodyguard. The Empress says it's surprising, but the girl even said she would give her life to protect her. The woman asks if she's serious, and the protagonist tells the Duchess to ask her herself if it's true or not. The woman insists that no, and she doesn't doubt Her Majesty's words. Her daughter is a good girl, but very cautious and often misunderstood. She was also concerned that this girl might be rude to Her Majesty. Well, the main character says the girl is polite and sincere, so the Duchess shouldn't worry, everything is fine. The woman then says that the Empress must have really liked this child. A little while later, Janice also comes into the room, and her mother asks if it was fun running away from home, to which she replies that it was, and the main character decides to leave them to talk alone. But when she comes out, someone addresses Her Highness, and the girl realizes that it is Haven. The guy at this time claims that he was waiting for her, and the young lady understands that if you think about it, everything is clear with Eddie and Janice, but she still can't understand why Haven likes her. After this, the two of them go outside, and the guy asks if Her Majesty really wants to stop the investigation into the assassination attempt on her. The girl replies that he is there too, and claims that Eddie has already scolded her for this. And also, if they still haven't been able to catch the villain, then they need to provoke him to new actions. The guy then asks how she can talk about this so frivolously, since her life is at stake. But the young lady tells Haven to relax, because she values her life, and let her think better about the fact that it was no secret to anyone that Eddie mixed drugs into her food. And also the poison that the villain used was incredibly bitter in taste, so the criminal who used this poison probably knew about these two things. The guy claims that the criminal could have hoped that she would not notice the taste, but the girl claims that she doesn't eat everything in a row, because she ate a piece and threw away the rest. But the Duke claims that she did eat it, after which they are silent for a while, and the young lady claims that, in any case, she doesn't think that they really plan to put her into eternal sleep. It's somehow awkward to poison the Empress herself. The guy then claims that thank God everything worked out, but she doesn't think so. Roviel claims that the poisoner could have had other goals, and she still thinks that even if they didn't want to put her into eternal sleep, if that's the case, then that's an even bigger headache. After which the Duke states that while her life is in danger, nothing else matters. The young lady wonders what this something means, and she doesn't understand what's going on in his head. The guy replies that there is nothing but a headache, and the girl asks whether she should tell the court physician about this. At this point, the guy is about to answer something, but the girl interrupts him and claims that she knows what he will say about taking care of his life himself. Well, the young man replies that no, and he won't tell the vet. At first, when he saw the list of medications that the count gave her, he thought it was too much, but now he understands why he did it. At this time, the main character is wondering if he really didn't understand anything, since she almost fell into an eternal sleep from the poisoning. The girl also doesn't understand the purpose of the poisoning attempt. After all, the perpetrator could have easily poisoned her in a multitude of other ways. But he chose Juriel's poison, which means he poisoned her with other intentions, and her plunging into eternal sleep was not his goal, and she is fine with that. Roviel also understands that Eddie is so concerned about her health because in a past life, she fell into eternal sleep due to illness, but she can't tell the Duke this. The young man then suggests discussing the matter with the Count. He also agrees with Her Majesty regarding the possibility of the presence of unknown intentions and asks if she has any guesses, to which the girl replies that she has none. He also wonders if the criminal could have predicted whether she would eat the poison or spit it out without swallowing, and if she did, whether she would fall into eternal sleep or become ill. There are too many variables the guy claims he understands, and the girl claims that if he achieved what he wanted, he would already lie low, so now all that remains is to wait and force Eddie to comb every millimeter of land would be cruel. The girl also claims that the guards continue to monitor Janice. The kingdom has also become much safer, and as Haven understands, the army commander has a lot of work to do. A little while later, the young lady's brother is already peeling an apple, and claims that it is bothering him. The fact that his sister is left alone and he's going away so far away. The girl then asks if Eddie could concentrate, to which the guy replies that, of course, and he pays attention, after which he talks about an operation called White Owl. He also claims that he will first go to Mount Delpin with the White Owl army to work on the dam the warriors pretend to be from the east. If Viscount Hildel mistakes their owls for Alcus's army, he will declare war. Sister has decreed that there must be no chaos in the southeast. So for the sake of stability and the empire, the imperial army will intervene as a mediator. The protagonist says exactly that, but insists that a title is a title, and with it, she can take the loyal southern Delmoy and the disgruntled Pagos and separate them. This operation isolates Pagos. The girl replies that everything is fine, he is a guy, and says that it is not a problem, and it is simple. But the real problem is that her sister does not care about her well-being. The girl asks why this is, and the guy tells her to judge for herself. Because everything they are talking about now concerns politics. The young man asks if he should empty the palace so she won't be in any danger. Haven insists that sounds tempting. The girl claims that she is working on it, but her brother claims that he is the only one still worried because of the attempt to plunge into eternal sleep, and therefore he asks the Duke to take care of his sister, and also to make sure that she doesn't put anything in her mouth that he hasn't personally tested, and he will leave the medicine with the butler, to which Haven agrees. The girl then asks what if the Duke gets poisoned, and the guy tells her not to be afraid, because knowing this, he gave the Duke Hepaton in large doses, so if he eats a little poison, Tony will fall into eternal sleep. At this time, the guy turns to his sister and tells her to look at this body. After all, the Duke looks like he can defeat a bear with his bare hands, and what would happen to him from a drop of poison? And his clothes are about to tear. The young lady then tells her brother not to point a knife at anyone, and even if the Duke is able to put the bear into eternal sleep, this does not protect him from poison. Haven claims that he certainly won't be able to put the bear into eternal sleep with his bare hands, but it won't be harmed by the poison. At this time, the young lady's brother asks if he can't even deal with the bear, but then he'll deal with him too. Well, the Duke claims that even though the bear is too tough for him, he can deal with it in no time. The girl then suggests leaving the showdown with this jerk to her, and if he beats this guy, he'll have to deal with her. Eddie asks if he heard and says that then only his sister can beat him. After which, he also suggests to his sister to finish here, and hands her some apples, after which he tells her to eat, and the main character wonders if it's really just her. After which the girl says that Eddie also needs to eat, so she offers to split it in half, but the guy says that the young lady should eat the whole thing. After which he takes another apple and throws it to the Duke and tells him to eat it. And he was strong enough to take good care of his little sister. The young man also wondered if he had understood. and the main character wonders what kind of a thing this is, and where her brother got such words from. But in childhood, he was always distinguished by politeness and kindness, after which the girl wonders whether she spoils him too much or does not pay attention to him. The Duke at this time only bites the apple and claims that he has understood, and the young lady wonders if he is going there too. The young lady also watches them eat these apples and realizes that it looks like the friendship of crazy children. A little while later, the girl is already sitting with papers and the Duke is watching her. After which he finally asks why she doesn't rest, since Her Majesty looks completely different than usual. Rovielle insists that without her little brat at her side, she has no strength for anything, and the Duke insists that it's only been a couple of days since the Count left the palace. Rovielle claims that for the first time he went somewhere precisely on her orders, and he will be fine. Haven asks if she is talking about the Count and whether to worry about him or the people on the Brandel River. The girl then says he doesn't understand her feelings at all, considering she's the older sister, yet he's sending his younger brother to such a dangerous place. The Duke claims that, in his opinion, this is the only way to avoid much more serious problems. And he thinks that the Count would be glad to receive an order from her, because it means that she believes in him. The Empress claims she's always believed in him, yet the boy says that giving him a task is a bit different. The girl also recalls how the boy claimed that since sister believed in him, he would give his all to avoid disappointing her. And the Duke claims that he thinks Her Majesty can already think about a eulogy for the Count. After all, she has nothing to worry about. After which the young lady turns to the Duke, and she puts her hand on his cheek. The boy then asks Her Majesty what is it, and the girl says that she thinks getting engaged to him was a really great decision. The young man then turns to Her Majesty once again, but she only strokes his head. And the guy is a little surprised by this, and when the girl removes her hand and sees his surprised face, she asks if everything is okay. After this, the guy just says that it's nothing, and the young lady says that it's really time to rest, after which she suggests going to lunch, to which the guy agrees. A little while later, the girl is already changing clothes, after which she hears someone knocking on the room and telling that person to come in. It turns out to be the commander of the knights, and she tells Her Majesty that Hildel is declaring war. The young lady asks if this is true, and they also turned out to be faster than she thought. Cecile replies that it is, and Operation White Owl proved extremely effective. Their guys are experts at pissing people off. At this time, the girl asks if Eddie knows, and the knight's commander replies that of course, because the Count said that he should also hurry. The Empress asks how Pagos and Delmoy reacted, to which Cecile replies that Duke Pagos is looking for a way out of the current situation, and for him, Hildel's war with Alquis was a big surprise. The lady with pink hair claims that it was worth it because they all know who will benefit from the confrontation between the South and the East. The Knight Commander claims that she sent a protest to Duke Delmoy, and for Duke Pagos, this will be a real stab in the back. After which, the protagonist tells Cecile to monitor Delmoy's reactions and report any movements, although the girl thinks that perhaps things are progressing faster than she planned. And the North guards Haven, while the West is out of the game for a while. No serious problems will arise until the White Owl is completed, and the girl wants to personally see Duke Pagos' reaction and not just get a report. After which, she turns to Cecile and claims that she should be there too. The commander of the knights asks where she should be, and the young lady answers that she was going to the Duchy of Pagos. A short time later, the young lady was already in a carriage, and someone asks if she's tired. Rovielle wonders if she should be tired, to which the Duke replies that she has weak stamina, so he is only worried that the journey will be difficult for her. The girl claims that this is easier than sorting through daily documentation and having to sit over documents for 14 hours a day to get everything done. The young man then says that she will drive herself into a coffin, and the girl understands that she actually once fell ill and plunged into eternal sleep. After which, the guy claims that for the Empire to have such an empress is a matter of pride, but for him to know that his bride does not take care of herself so much is a real tragedy. The girl claims that she doesn't work that much, but the guy says that she's an inveterate workaholic, even though she considers their trip a long-awaited vacation and isn't returning to work for 3 months. The girl replies that she wouldn't, and asks how she can leave the palace for 3 months if she's already worried about even a month of her upcoming absence. The guy claims that thanks to her, the current empire will survive for a year without anyone's help, And the girl then sarcastically apologizes for the fact that the engagement with her is a real tragedy. The young man claims that being engaged to her is the best thing that has ever happened to him. But the documents are more important to her than him. Roviel argues that he could have simply told her he needed something, but she only looks at her when she finishes her work. The guy insists that if she likes his work, she should at least smile, and he asks if the Empress knows that he is trying only for the sake of her smile, and besides, even when he was Duke of the North, he never worked this much. Roviel claims they walk together for an hour every day, and the guy claims that if it weren't for this, she would have been stuck in the palace all day. The young lady then turns to Haven and claims that she likes him and that she has always liked what he does, so he shouldn't overexert himself. The young man suggests she not say such devious things, but the girl asks what's wrong, since she's simply telling him the truth. But the Duke insists she doesn't realize that what she says could lead to misunderstandings. Roviel understands that she cares about him, and doesn't she show it enough? After which the young lady once again turns to Haven and claims that she does not know what she is doing wrong, but she really likes him. He works well and is also handsome and has a pleasant voice. He is kind and smart, and his hair is soft and silky. And she also likes his clear eyes, and she also likes holding hands with him because she enjoys the warmth of his big palm. The girl is about to continue her story, but the guy, after this connection, embarrassed, says that it's okay and he understands. The girl then tells him to wait, because that's not all. And the coachman, hearing this, only becomes embarrassed. A little while later, the guide tells the lady not to worry, because the Count is not someone who can be easily put into eternal sleep. Roviel states that she hopes the Duke remembers that her brother is an ordinary person. Haven then tells the young lady that this tea will help her relieve stress and everything will be fine with the Count because she will still see him. At this time, someone enters the room and tells Her Majesty that a messenger from the Commander-in-Chief has arrived. The young lady asks if he has come from Eddie, after which she tells him to let him in quickly. Then the man hands the lady a piece of paper, and the girl, having read it, only sighs. The guy then asks what happened to the Count, and the girl replies that the Commander-in-Chief defeated the elite army of Pagos. And she also says that thank God this is so. The girl also wonders how the rest of the East reacted, but the servant claims that after the news of the Duke's defeat, no movements were noticed. Haven claims that he thinks they realize that they can't stand against the Imperial Army, especially if they do something. The Empress compliments his phrase and claims that this will be considered treason. She is also someone whose name every inhabitant of this empire must know. After all, she is a leader who, although young, already carries her own coat of arms on her flag. Her closest relative is the Viscount's son, who commands the troops. The girl came with dozens of knights to the unstable territory and looks at them unwaveringly. After all, this can only be Her Imperial Majesty, Roviel Sutton. The knights then lay down their swords and shout in greeting to Her Imperial Majesty. He also asks what brought them there, and the girl replies that she is there to resolve the conflict between the East and the South, after which she asks how the war is going now. One of them claims that the situation was difficult when the son of the Eastern Duke personally entered the war, and now everything has improved because the young Duke of Pagosa has withdrawn his troops. The South will seize this opportunity, and they are now preparing for a full-scale war. The girl then asks what made Pagos retreat, and the knight claims he heard rumors that the duchy was under attack. The young lady asks who did it, and the guy replies that he's not sure, but he heard that the Commander-in-Chief left for the East a few days ago. The girl then wonders if he's talking about Eddie. Meanwhile, the Duke claims that it seems someone has chosen the quickest way to end this war, but the girl insists that this isn't funny, and Eddie is in the Duchy of Pagos. After which Haven claims that if he heard that Her Majesty was heading to the battlefield, he would do the same. The girl says it's impossible to end the war with only 10,000 soldiers under her command, and that she must join him. But the Duke tells Her Majesty that she seems to have forgotten that she doesn't even have 10,000 soldiers. The girl then asks if it wouldn't be better to arrive there unnoticed, and her bodyguard says that's absurd. A little while later, the girl is already sitting and turning to the young Viscount Hildel, and also claims that he said that the South is preparing for a large-scale war with the East, so she asks if this is true, to which the guy replies that yes, and the Duke's son will lead this southern offensive on Alkis. The girl then asks if they plan to launch the offensive from there, To which the boy replies that yes, and his father has already gone to greet the young Duke Delmoy, so they are expecting him this evening. The Empress then turns to the Duke and tells him to prepare everything for departure, to which he replies that he understands. The young lady claims they're going to see Viscount Hildel. A short time later, they're already inside the building, and the girl is looking out at the rain. The Duke insists she's worried about the water, not the small children. The girl replies that she doesn't deny it, and is truly worried about her brother. After which Haven tells her not to worry, because the Count is not someone who can be easily put into eternal sleep, but the main character insists that she hopes the Duke remembers that her brother is an ordinary man. Then someone enters the room and informs them that a messenger from the Commander-in-Chief has arrived. The girl orders him to be let in immediately. When the young lady reads this sheet, the Duke asks what happened. The girl replies that everything is fine and asks how her brother is doing, to which the messenger replies that it seems the Duke's son was plunged into eternal sleep in the previous battle, and the Duke's palace itself was surrounded and attacked. The young lady understands that this has always been the case, and that victory is a revolution, defeat a rebellion. Duke Pagosa is the only fool who doesn't understand that the Imperial Army is beyond his capabilities. But he didn't retreat, even when his elite troops and his own son fell. It's true that Eddie isn't one to show mercy to those who tuck their tails between their legs, but the fact is that the Duchy of Pagos ended up that way. This means it deliberately fought against the Imperial Army. The Duke, meanwhile, claims the steamship Count did a good job of clearing their path. The young lady says how she longs to see Eddie. Yet the young man insists that Her Majesty's safety is his priority and urges her to wait for the Southern Army. The girl replies that yes, and they will check the condition of Duke Pagos only after the arrival of Duke Delmoy's son. A little while later, Geppetto Delmoy comes there and claims that it is a great honor for him to help them. After which he also kisses the young lady's hand, and Haven looks at it menacingly. However, when the girl looks at him, the guy just turns around and the main character smiles. He also asks if they should go and takes Haven's hand. A little while later, they arrive in the garden, and the girl claims that someone has given up again. Her brother asks his sister to honor him, and the girl asks if he wants to be responsible for his actions, and if this is his punishment for making her worry. The guy then claims that he just wanted to quickly sort everything out so he could see his sister sooner. Hey, isn't that the easiest way? The Duke nods and affirms his agreement. The girl ponders what he agrees with. Under the imperial flag, the Satin family rallied 20,000 soldiers to defend Hildel. The remaining rulers of the East did not intervene in the battle, silently observing with their doors locked, and that was the only right decision for them. Despite everyone preparing for a full-scale war, the Empress and the southern troops peacefully arrived in Duke Pagos's territory. The civil war, which almost escalated into a territorial one, quickly came to an end. The Supreme Commander executed Pagos's son, who fought against the Imperial Army and then laid siege to the Duke's castle. The Duke locked himself inside and made no response. However, as a magnanimous Empress, the girl decided to lend a helping hand to Pagos. She wrote that she would turn a blind eye to their son's betrayal if they voluntarily surrendered, but otherwise she would consider them traitors as well, and then nothing would stop them from breaking in by force, and they would be given 3 a.m. to think about it. The girl also understands that the reason why the Duke locked the door is obvious, and they are waiting for the Eastern troops to come to their aid. But the girl wonders if they really thought she would wait that long. At this time, someone turns to Her Majesty and asks if the Duke will leave of his own free will, and the girl claims that those 3 will come into him if he doesn't come out and asks what the guy is worried about. After which, she also tells him to tell his father to come to the Duchy of Pagos, and since she came all the way there, it would be nice to meet him in person. The guy then says that having heard that Her Majesty is there, he has already set out on his journey, and his father will arrive in a few days. To which the girl agrees. He then asks them if they should visit Duke Pagos in person, after which they enter the duchy. And the girl sitting on the chair asserts that a little more and raising the white flag would be pointless. Well, she also asks what he is doing. The Duke asks for forgiveness, after which the young lady claims that he did not kneel. The man is only surprised by this, after which he kneels before Her Majesty and greets her. But the girl claims that he is not so happy about this, after which the man, with a smile on his face, tells Her Majesty that he is completely happy, and she drove an innocent prick into the duchy, so how can she behave so outrageously? The young lady claims that he has no shame whatsoever for the war unleashed under her nose. But these are truly outrageous times. Well, the man says that it's obvious, and why should he ask the Duke of Pagosa for permission to resolve personal matters? The girl replies that it was a battle between Alcas and Hildel, and Pagos had no right to interfere. But he moved his army without permission, putting the empire in danger. The man then claims that Delmoy also intervened in this battle, and therefore should be judged fairly. The girl claims that Duke Delmoy asked her permission. The peacock then asks how he could have put the empire at risk. It is only for the sake of protecting the South from Eastern provocations that it is quite natural to ask Her Majesty for permission to do this. The girl understands that he lies like he breathes, and this guy has no shame or conscience. Duke Pagos is angry at this time, but claims that Her Majesty does not seem to know. But since time immemorial, the duchy has been the founding family of this empire, and this also guarantees special treatment for them. So he is simply doing his duty as the ruler of the East, and the will of Pagos is not something she has the right to interfere with. But after this, the girl only turns to the Duke and claims that seeing the insolence with which he speaks, she got the impression that he does not intend to live long, after which she asks if he really wants to plunge into eternal sleep, and Haven points his sword at him. The young lady's brother turns to his sister at this time and says that he will put him into eternal sleep, but at the same moment, her personal knight shuts the guy's mouth, and her main character says that Janice is a good girl. Duke Pagos, meanwhile, is shaking with fear, after which he even bows his head and begs Her Majesty to pardon him, while the girl claims she doesn't particularly want to, after which the man cries out that he's made a big mistake and asks for forgiveness. The girl then rises from her seat and says, "Selter Pagosa." She demotes their family's title to that of Count, and henceforth the Duchy of Pagos will come under the control of the imperial family. In exchange, she grants the Count of Pagos the lands of Seliv, once occupied by the former emperor, and let him prepare to leave the castle, after which the man only cries out in despair. As they continue on, Haven tells the lady that he doubts Duke Pagos will forgive this. The girl insists that he will likely seek revenge, and Haven argues that it's best to rip this problem out at its roots. But the girl replies that if they don't respond, they'll give the East a pretext for rebellion, and they don't know how the borderlands will react. Therefore, at this point, it is better to first observe them, and the girl understands that now is the best moment to show that the crown has no bad intentions. To recruit tens of thousands of soldiers guarding the eastern border into the imperial army, it's necessary not to put their master into eternal sleep, but to crush him into the dirt. While the girl was working on transforming the Duchy of Pagos into territory controlled by the Empress, Duke Delmoy arrived. The girl then greets the Duke and claims that he must be tired after such a long journey, to which the man apologizes for not being able to meet her at the coronation ceremony and greet her properly. Rovio claims the reason she invited him there is because the situation in the southeast has changed and she needs to tell him something. The man then tells Her Majesty to do as she sees fit. After all, Delmoy will fulfill her wishes. But first, he'd like to ask her. The main character then asks what it is, and Duke Delmoy asks what she thinks about keeping his boy close to her, which makes the young lady a little surprised, and Haven looks menacingly at the sky. The young lady also wonders what kind of unexpected luck this is, after which she finally understands that she shouldn't show how much she likes it, and asks if, when talking about his son, he really means Geppetto standing next to him. To which the man tells Her Majesty that everything is absolutely correct, but he is offering not because he is his son, but because he is a very talented child who is capable of helping Her Majesty. The girl realizes she knows young Delmoy's eloquence and is a talent she truly needs. Meanwhile, the boy's father insists that they don't covet a position in the palace, and that the lady should just take a closer look, as his boy is so handsome, and she can also just take him to her. But if he does not attract her as a lover, then the guy can become an excellent assistant and this child will be faithful to her for the rest of his life. After which he asks her to think about it. Rovio claims she's not interested in lovers, but since he's praising this guy so much, she's interested. How can she refuse such an offer? And the girl with a smile on her face understands that she has a new employee. A little while later, the girl walks down the corridor and happily thinks that they have dealt with the East and even received a new hostage. a worker from the south, because she will send him to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. After which the young lady thinks that this is why the previous emperor was on the road so often. But she got so much from just one trip. But when the young lady looks at the Duke, she sees that he goes further and then turns to him. The guy turns around and responds to Her Majesty, after which the girl asks if something has happened, as he looks gloomy. The guy simply turns around and says nothing, after which the girl thinks, "I'm clear," and it looks like something's going on. Meanwhile, they're walking further down the hallway and the girl hears someone yelling about what a fool the guy is. Well, the young man insists he asked her not to call him that. After which, the main character sees that her brother has once again clashed with his personal knight. After which, she tells Eddie not to quarrel with Janice. Well, the guy just says that she's asking for it, and the young lady claims that, in her opinion, it's the opposite and tells Janice to ignore it. After this, the girl sits down at her desk and asks the guy if he's finished deploying his troops. The young man replies that he has, and that he's decided to leave 5,000 soldiers behind. The main character then asks what happened to the commander, and he replies that the guy he took with him last time showed himself well, so he decided to leave the command to him. Rovio claims that since he brought him, he is confident in him, and she, the girl, also says that she is confident in them as well, just like in James and Haven. Her brother then asks if she found him, and the girl asks if he's trying to say he didn't choose the new commander, after which he replies that he didn't, but it seems they're lucky because he carries out his orders perfectly. At this time, the main character looks at the Duke and realizes that now his face looks as if he is thinking about something. But they could have talked about what was troubling him back in Pagosa Castle, but there was so much going on, and having decided that they were a replacement for the Duke, who had now become a count, the Eastern aristocrats constantly came to whine about their problems. Before they decide to betray, they need to take control of the Eastern troops and border guards, and the girl must disperse them so that the East cannot unite. And besides, she lowered taxes to calm the people and appointed a new tax collector, and also said that if he screwed up with them, he would lose his head. After which the day came when everything calmed down, and they returned to Finland, but a little while later the Duke claims that he must go north. The main character asks why he suddenly decided to do this, and whether something really happened. To which the guy answers Her Majesty that nothing happened. Well, the girl claims that it seemed to her that she had already said that she hated lies, after which the young man claims that he is not lying, and she definitely does not need to worry about this. There's just a troublesome little matter waiting for her at home, and the girl wonders if something bad has happened in the north. The guy claims that, good or bad, it's not worth the young lady's attention. The girl then realizes that she's certain Haven has many reasons for leaving, and he's been acting so strange lately, which makes her wonder if it's so hard to talk about everything. She also understands that she only needs to say one word to get him to go, but she still doesn't understand why she can't bring herself to do it. Although it's no big deal that Haven won't be there, the young lady says they'll meet again in Finland, and the guy insists he'll try to return as soon as possible. The girl also tells him not to worry, as without him, she'll have a ton of work to do. And then she realizes she didn't try to win him back with a job. The young man then simply smiles and approaches her, whispering that a similar aviator will return to her just as quickly. A little while later, the girl is already in the carriage and turns to her brother and also claims that they say that people from the north came to the palace who were looking for Haven, and she asks if something serious has happened. Her brother replies that he has no idea and doesn't remember anything happening at all. The girl insists that she wasn't an empress in her past life, and it's unlikely that their present future will match their past. To which the young man agrees, but wonders if the Duke didn't tell her not to worry and that he has the right to visit his duchy, so let sister relax. The girl understands that Eddie and Janice are telling her not to worry, but she is worried because there is no one next to her, and the guy could tell her what happened if it did not matter much. Well, the young lady thinks that maybe the problems were just an excuse, and he ran away because she was too strict. But Caleb and the other secretaries are paid. On the server, the Duke is a full-fledged member, which means he's not the poorest person. But still she thinks that a precious stone from some bird is not too small a reward for his labors. After which the girl thinks that it's decided, and when he returns, It will need to be fixed, and she will treat the guy better. And she decided to do so, but her fiancé still hasn't returned. Meanwhile, the secretary, worried, turns to Her Majesty, and her brother is also worried about her. The girl understands that while she was in Pagosa, Caleb dealt with all the previously agreed matters. Geppetto, appointed Minister of Foreign Affairs, adapted well, and the atmosphere in the ministry became good. The girl also thinks that everything is obviously going well, but she still does not understand why she feels uncomfortable. At this time, the secretary turns to Her Majesty, and her brother also asks his sister what about going for a walk. The girl then asks if he is talking about going for a walk, and the young man claims that he simply thinks that she needs to change her mood, after which he offers to go with him. But the girl says it's not worth it, and she'll take a walk alone. She also points to a crumpled piece of paper and insists that it needs to be rewritten. He also apologizes for adding unnecessary work to the secretary's responsibilities, but the latter tells Her Majesty that everything is fine. He then takes the piece of paper, even though he still has a mountain of work to do. A little while later, the girl goes out into the garden, but all she remembers is how Haven addressed her, and also realizes that she does not know his feelings. A little while later, the commander of the knights turns to Her Majesty and asks what brought her to her. Well, the girl is just wondering if there is any news from the north, because more than a month has passed since Haven went north, and there is still no news from him, so she asks if Cecile knows why the Duke has not returned yet. The blonde replies that she doesn't know, and doesn't Her Majesty know more about the Duke than she does? The young lady insists that if she knew, she wouldn't have come to ask. Cecile wonders if they had a falling out, and if their conflict took place outside of work. Roviel claims that this simply cannot be, and Haven said that he likes her, and also thinks that from their first meeting. He always treated her well, and besides, when Eddie went to war, the Duke consoled her and told her not to worry. After which Cecile asks how Her Majesty responded to the Duke's feelings. She then claims that she said thank you. The Knight Commander is surprised and asks Her Majesty if perhaps she doesn't like the Duke. The girl then asks what she means and insists she has the best fiancé. But the blonde insists she's not talking about her feelings for him as an employee. The main character asks what she means, and she thinks Haven is quite an interesting guy. She also realizes it's a little strange, but she likes everything about him. And just one glance is enough to tell he's very handsome, especially his powerful body, which perfectly complements his snow-white face. The Knight Commander argues that, even though the Duke is objectively attractive, isn't he exactly her type? After which the young lady thinks a little, and also asserts that, based on her taste, the Duke is the best. And small and beautiful children like Eddie are perceived more as younger brothers than men. After which the blonde asks if she really only remembered the Commander-in-Chief, Duke de Hard, and she wonders what the lady thinks about Geppetto Delmoy. Rumors had begun circulating around the palace that young Delmoy was in love with Her Majesty. The girl then remarked that, come to think of it, Geppetto was quite handsome. The blonde wondered if he wasn't a good husband material, but she could always take him as a lover. The girl then realizes that it's not that she didn't want to tie another useful person to herself in this way, but she prefers Haven as a husband, and she doesn't want having a lover to break his heart. After which the girl says that no, and Haven alone is enough as a companion. Well, the blonde says that she doesn't have to marry a man she doesn't even like. After which the young lady is surprised and asks if she really doesn't like Haven, to which the blonde replies that she did say that she rejected the Duke's feelings. The main character asks when, but the girl replies that she said she thanked him for his confession. To which the young lady replies that she did thank him, but she didn't say no. After which the commander of the knights asserts to Her Majesty that saying thank you for a declaration of love doesn't look like a subtle demonstration of hostility. The main character then becomes shocked, and the blonde claims that, judging by her reaction, she really didn't know, and if a misunderstanding arises with Duke de Hard, it will probably cause a lot of problems, and she thinks that she should report to her that there are guests in the Duke's palace now. The main character wonders who is there, and the commander of the knights claims that there is a guest from the kingdom of Grypton, or, more precisely, the royal princess. The protagonist is surprised by this. She realizes that de Hard is located north of the Seven Hills and borders Grypton, and that throughout their history they have never been enemies. What's surprising is that Gripton loves to provoke everyone out of sheer boredom, and there is a possibility that they sent their princess as a guarantee of peace, and in other words, Haven had to go north to deal with border conflicts. But the girl thinks it's somehow related. Then the Knight Commander interrupts her thoughts and claims that it seems Gripton's daughter has proposed to Duke Dahar. She can't know what the Duke replied, but one thing is certain. The princess and her retinue have been living in the Duke's castle for a very long time. The young lady then understands what it means for her future husband, who might have mistakenly assumed her feelings were rejected, to have received a proposal from another woman, and he threw it away. After which the main character tells Cecile to get ready, and the girl, surprised, asks where. After which the young lady says they'll go pick up her fiancé. A little while later, they're already heading off in a carriage, and the young lady's brother turns to her and tells her to check out the wonderful weather. The girl tells the guy to sit still, but the young man claims that they haven't traveled together for a long time, and he's also in seventh heaven, and they have to eat something tasty. The girl then tells Eddie she's not going to have fun, but the guy suggests they play a game of who can catch Dehard first, and if he finds him first, he'll tie him up and drag him to her. They'll also definitely try traditional northern cuisine. The young lady then says he's planning to meet Haven the wrong way. The young man asks if she wants him to put him to sleep on the spot. The young lady then asks why, and the boy replies that the Duke met another woman and abandoned his sister, so he deserves to be plunged into eternal sleep. The protagonist then says the Duke didn't cheat on her, and he claims that if he had cheated on her, she would have simply had to end the marriage. Eddie says it's such a shame and that his sister is too kind, to which the girl replies that it's not true. But be that as it may, Haven is not that kind of person, to which the guy replies that he knows. And the Duke is not deceiving her, because anyone who has seen how the Duke treats someone other than his sister. This will confirm. The main character then wonders what he means, and whether it's Haven. He, who is always polite and fair, behaves differently when she's not around. The young lady then claims that she was in the north in the past, and the guy asks if she was there before the reincarnation. To which the girl replies that yes, and then she met Haven. It happened in the winter when she was 20 years old. The young man claims that he somehow found out where the girl was from and means that he knew her. Otherwise, she would have definitely found out how creepy he is. After which the young lady is a little surprised, and the guy only tells his sister not to worry because the Duke will never turn away from her. The main character then thinks how the guy can be sure of this in his past life. She was shivering from the unusual cold of the north, and Haven warmed her with warm tea. They said a few phrases to each other that were completely erased from her memory. And then he brought her everything she came for, and the girl understands that she just wants to thank him for everything. And she is afraid to punish him for breaking his promise to return quickly, after which she hopes that she will be forgiven for this again. A little while later, they find themselves in the north, and the young lady realizes that they have entered the northern lands and the wind has begun to change. But it's not even winter yet, and it's already so cold. A little while later, the young lady notices someone riding a horse near her tunic and addresses her. The main character looks at this guy and asks if this is Haven, after which she tells the carriage to stop, and then they emerge from it. Haven turns to Her Majesty and extends his hand to her. But the young lady's brother at that very moment knocks the guy's hand away, after which he still takes out his sword and its sheath, and he points it at the Duke. The girl is then a little surprised and asks what he's doing, and the Duke also wonders what this means. The young lady's personal bodyguard also grabs his sword. The guy wonders what they should do with the person who broke their sister's heart. The Duke then simply kneels down and takes a piece of the lady's cloak into his hands, after which he asks if he really broke her heart. The girl then only turns to Haeyeon, and she tells him to get up, but she thinks that this is so strange, because just recently she even talked about breaking up the marriage. And now she's so happy that he's meeting her. After which the girl says she came there to pick him up and invites him back. To which the guy agrees, and the young lady understands that this is precisely why the previous emperor. They fell in love with someone so much that they were ready to bring their own country into ruin. And yet she almost spent half of the empire's fortune on him. But before that, the girl asks if he wants to introduce her to someone. The guy then asks who he can introduce to her, and the girl answers that the Princess of Gripton proposed to him, and, moreover, information reached her that she was living in his duchy. The guy then asks how she knows and claims that he rejected her offer, and also thinks that Her Majesty should not worry about nonsense that he can deal with himself. The girl then asks if he refused, and the guy replies that he did, and the young lady asserts that, of course, because if he had answered her with consent, she would have brought the imperial army. At this time, Eddie claims that he recognizes his sister and also asks her to show them where the crayfish spend the winter. Well, the Duke at this time takes her hand in his and says that since the lady has come such a long way in order to visit his castle, then he will gladly show her the way, and the young lady realizes that he looks so excited that she cannot bring herself to say the real reason for her visit. A short time later, they're riding in a carriage, and the guy claims that if he'd known she was so worried, he would have finished work earlier and returned. The girl claims she thought he'd betrayed her and left her for another woman. Well, the young man tells Her Majesty that this will never happen, but the girl replies that yes, otherwise there will be a war. After which, the girl sees the gloomy expression on the guy's face and tells him not to pretend that he is facing a dilemma. When the girl gets out of the carriage, the guy suddenly approaches her ear, and he claims he wanted to see her so much. Well, the young lady claims he's lying, and she doesn't remember seeing them before her arrival. To which the guy replies that he really was planning to leave tomorrow. Well, the young man claims they've even already dug a hole under the mountain to bury the princess. When the girl arrives at the castle, she is greeted by Haven's uncle, Tried to Hard, who claims it's their first meeting and asks for permission to introduce himself. The girl tells him to look up, as he must be surprised by her sudden arrival. To which the man replies that no, and he thanks her for such a timely visit, since he was already going to write her a letter. After which he also begs to take the Duke with him, because he cannot name the reason for this request, but the Duke forbade him to worry Her Majesty. The girl then asks if this is really true, and would still like to know the details. After which the man asks to simply report that the Duke nearly started a war to reject Gripton's offer. The young man then tells his uncle that this is making Her Majesty uneasy. The girl then asks if he's talking about the war and claims he's becoming increasingly curious, then suggests they call Gripton's daughter. He obeys, and the Duke asks if the girl really wants to talk to her now. But the young lady wonders if she is already buried under the mountain. To which the guy replies that no, and that she is still in the castle. The girl then thinks what it means, while they are still much time later, she is already sitting with her. And the lady with the blonde hair greets Her Majesty Empress Stan. The girl claims that she is Gripton's second daughter, and her name is Leona. The Empress then asks if they have come there to propose to her fiancé and tells her to relax and tell it like it is. And not everyone will dare to propose to a man engaged to the Empress, after which she wonders whether it is for political gain or because of feelings for Haven. But the girl then asks if she talks about her feelings for this idiot and asserts to Her Highness that everything is in vain. And besides, only upon arriving there did she learn about their engagement, and her father simply ordered her to marry the Duke. So she came to convince the Duke to accept her proposals, and they were only engaged, so how should this worry her? But the girl wonders if she wants to say what. She doesn't like Haven, which makes the Duke's father think she's strange. The girl insists that a princess can't rely on her feelings in such matters, and the young lady's interest only means he's forcing his daughter to marry a man she has no sympathy for. And it turns out the king isn't the best father. The lady with the blonde hair only gets angry after this, and also claims that she thinks the lady will not accept this as an excuse, and it would be great to carry out her father's will, but he is not the type to scold her for refusing, so she will soon simply return home. Roviel asks if she is really returning, and spent 2 months there, but suddenly decided to leave, to which the girl asks what else is left for her since she is already there, and besides, she was planning to leave anyway, before she had the opportunity to find out the depth of the hole prepared for her. The young lady then wonders if she is really going to wait for her to leave and then suddenly return, and moreover, if she understood that because of her engagement with Haven, she had no chance, she should have returned home as soon as she arrived in the duchy. Gripton and Dahard cannot be called friendly neighbors, and it is strange that they suddenly proposed a marriage union, but if they needed an alliance with the Seven Hills, they would have come to her. Hey, the girl wonders if she is too fixated on the fact that Haven received an offer and is missing something. The princess asks if she can leave them to prepare for her return home before they decide to punish her for proposing to her fiancé. But the girl then tells the princess to sit down. He also asks what the situation is like at the border, to which the Duke replies that, surprisingly, everything is calm. The girl asks what's happening with the Grypton troops and whether the numbers match up. The guy replies that many soldiers are missing in action. The girl asks where they went, after which everyone tenses up, and the princess jumps up from her seat. And she cries out, do they really want to accuse them of something? But she is there on her father's orders, and not in order to start a war. The Empress claims that she doesn't think his father is that crazy, but then she realizes that she is definitely there for the marriage and her goal is to distract them. 4 years later, would Grypton and Zilton have attacked the Seven Hills if she hadn't taken the throne and paid Zilton off? Their empire's debt to Zilton amounted to 320,000 gold pieces. And this debt would continue to grow, and naturally, in the past, Zilton was not going to tolerate such things and, having united with Grypton, attacked the Seven Hills. But this time, everything is different. And the debt is fully paid, and the alliance between these two empires is stronger than ever, so the unification of Zilton and Grypton is currently unlikely. And if Grypton does not increase his military power, then attacking their empire is pointless. And now the troops have suddenly disappeared, after which the girl claims that they missed it. Grypton also intends to occupy Ilione in the northeast. The princess remains silent after this. But the girl understands that she should start with Ilione near Grypton and add the kingdom of Todrum, and then even the combined Seven Hills and Zilton will not be Grypton's enemy. After which, the young lady orders them to immediately check on Ilione and Todrum, and the Duke assures them that they are heading there immediately. The princess at this time asserts that if this is all, she would like to leave. Well, the main character asks what if she doesn't let her leave, and the princess asks if she wants to say that she will let her marry the Duke, to which the girl replies that not at all. And the lady with the blonde hair says that in that case, is she really taking her hostage? The young lady then claims she never even considered such a thing and invites the princess as a guest. She also understands that until she unravels Grypton's plans, the princess has diplomatic value. But the lady with the blonde hair claims that she would rather plunge into eternal sleep than disturb Grypton and her father. And it would also be nice if she could take a companion with her on the road. The Duke, meanwhile, can't take it anymore and draws his sword from its sheath. The main character turns to him with concern, but the guy at this time only presses his sword to the princess's throat, and he looks at her menacingly. Roviel tells him to lower his sword, and what about the princess? There won't be any fellow traveler, so let her get out of her country right now. After which, in this case, the princess asks permission to deviate. A short time later, they are already sitting at the table, and the Duke claims that the princess insulted her. And also, they shouldn't have let her go so easily, because it would be better to bury her under the mountain, but the main character says that Haven should calm down, because they have no evidence that they intend to put her into eternal sleep, and it would be better to plant a tree in that hole. And besides, if something happens to the princess, a war with Grypton will immediately begin. Well, the guy claims that this war is inevitable anyway, so they better deal with Grypton before he takes over Ilione. The girl says the Duke is right, and that one day they will attack their empire, but attacking first is not the same as reacting to an invasion. The girl also asks what their neighbors will think if they attack first, and she understands that there is a rigid power structure in place on their continent, and if the balance in one place is disturbed, then chaos will begin, and they cannot allow this, so first they need to find out what Grypton is doing. A little while later, the young lady's brother comes into her room and addresses her. He also claims that the princess of Grypton has escaped and asks if he can catch up with her, but the main character claims that she was the one who kicked her out. The young lady's brother, meanwhile, points out that the Duke diligently dug her grave on Mount Mitris. Roviel insists they won't bury anyone. And the guy says he thinks it's forgivable, in cases of jealousy, to get rid of annoying people. Roviel says that's an unaffordable luxury for an empress. Meanwhile, the boy turns to his sister and asks if he's denying that he's jealous. That is, if he's genuinely jealous of Grypton's daughter. The girl replies that she doesn't know whether it's jealousy or not. After all, she simply wants to monopolize Haven. This only embarrasses the boy, while the young lady insists that the Duke is her man and no one has the right to take him away from her. She also understands that when someone wants to kidnap her obedient, understanding, and always helpful fiancé, how can she silently watch this? At this time, the Duke sheepishly asks if she is talking about wanting to monopolize him, and the girl asks what the matter is, because he was the first to say something like that, and the young man says that it's true. But the girl asks why her face is like that. The guy then says he'll fix it, and then the girl suggests starting the meeting. She also states that she would like to contact Ilona and Tudrum before Gripton attacks them, and wonders if she has any contact with the Seven Hills. The commander of the Knights answers Her Majesty that no, and they only observe their movements, and they also rarely interact with the Seven Hills. After which the young lady asks if Gripton can contact both of them. The blonde replies that they do indeed have an informant near the border. The girl understands that Cecile will not be able to cope with this task alone, and when she returns to Finland, she will ask Geppetto to create an external surveillance department. And also, if she knows what is happening on the border, she will be able to say with certainty where the Griptonians are heading. As for Gripton's neighbors, only Ilona is there. Meanwhile, the Duke's uncle addresses Her Majesty. He asks if she really thinks Gripton is planning to attack Ilion. But the girl replies that if they weren't going to invade Ilion, why would they bother doing such a thing? But the man then wonders why it is so difficult to capture Ilione. They can do so at any time. He also claims that Gripton has always coveted the fertile lands of the Seven Hills. And from this side, Ilona is of little use. But the girl claims that the duchy does not allow them to invade the empire. And he asks if he thinks that they could have found another way. After which, the uncle claims that he says this because they do not like to waste resources on the post, and the likelihood that they found a bypass route to invade the Seven Hills is really high. The girl asserts that she will think about it, and that no one knows Gripton better than Duke de Hard. She then orders the Knight Commander to closely monitor Gripton's movements and send men to Zilton. After all, he could become Gripton's target, and they must warn them, after which the blonde tells Her Majesty that she understood, but he wonders if she thinks this is too much even for Gripton. And also, how does she know that an attack on Zilton is unlikely? The girl understands that the Seven Hills fell due to the previous emperor's stupidity, but that was in the past. And as long as she remains empress, this empire will not be an easy opponent for anyone. Now, if anyone decides that Zilton is weak, it would be a fatal mistake for the attackers. While their military might may leave much to be desired, their gold reserves easily compensate for this shortcoming. In essence, war is a struggle for resources, and Zilton only needs to spend money and hold out until their ally deploys an army. And then even Gripton won't be able to fight two opponents at the same time, and they should understand this. Eddie at this time turns to his sister and tells her not to try to apply common sense to the Griptonians, and she knows that they are all war dogs. He also says that the girl should simply imagine the Haven army in their place. The protagonist then ponders what Haven should do. Afterward, the girl turns to Cecile and tells her to immediately send someone to Zilton because she wants to know how much money they have at their disposal. And besides, it is necessary to find out whether each noble family has enough amuntia. After which the girl obeys and states that she will immediately begin preparations. And the young lady also turns to her brother and tells him to make sure that his troops are ready to march at any time. The Duke's uncle at this time claims that they will once again check the northern border and the adjacent territory, and Her Majesty should also hurry to return to Finland, because if it comes to war, then it will definitely start there, and in the north it will become too dangerous for it. And if Her Majesty gets involved in the war, the Duke interrupts his uncle and says that he's right, it's dangerous there, so she'd better return. But the main character asks him what he's talking about, and if things get dangerous in the north, she'll have to leave the land and hurry there. The guy tells Her Majesty not to even think about it, because it's inevitable. But the girl tells him to think about it himself, because what if Gripton had attacked, and he and Eddie were fighting there, and without you by her side, it's dangerous for her to be anywhere. And in any case, she asks if being next to him isn't the safest place in the world. After which the guy is a little surprised but says that he will definitely crush them all. The young lady, looking at the Duke, is even a little surprised, and the girl understands that if she stays there, then their combat power will definitely increase, but in that case, she claims that she will monitor the situation from there until they figure out the movements of Gripton's troops and the meeting is over. After the rest of the people leave, the Duke extends his hand to the young lady, and he says that he will take her to the prepared chambers and take her to a room for the duration of her stay in Dehar. He also claims that it is too small and was certainly prepared in a hurry. At this time, the main character watches the Duke and remembers how the lady with blonde hair spoke. What if I say thank you for a declaration of love? Doesn't that sound like a subtle display of dislike? And the girl realizes that she was so busy with other things that she almost forgot, and first she needs to clarify this misunderstanding. Then the main character tells her bodyguard that she has something to talk about and tells her to leave them alone for a while and not let anyone in. After which the bodyguard agrees and leaves the room, and the young lady then turns to Haven. And the guy responds, after which he apologizes to Her Majesty and claims that he should have sorted this out much earlier and returned to her as soon as possible. But the girl tells him to forget it, because she wants to talk about something else. After which the young lady comes closer to him, and he says that when she thanked him for his confession, she did not reject him then, and she doesn't plan to marry anyone except him, which makes the guy embarrassed. And he says it can't be. The girl then asks why not, and she's telling the pure truth, but the guy says it's impossible. The girl realizes there's a misunderstanding between them, and she openly pointed at him but thinks why he doesn't want to accept it, after which she extends her hand to the guy's face. She also claims that their feelings are mutual, and she is certain of it. The Duke asserts that if Her Majesty truly loves him as much as he loves her, then she must be thinking about the same thing as he is now, and hoping for the same thing as he is, after which the girl replies that this is true, and the guy kisses her hand, and then her lips, the main character, moving away from the kiss, thinks that, so that's what he meant. And by the way, she doesn't understand why he is so excited after such a passionate kiss, after which the girl sighs and grabs the guy and brings him closer to her, kissing him. The young man is only embarrassed and surprised by this, but he grabs the edge of the bed, after which the girl hears some kind of cracking sound, and he thinks what that sound was, but when he looks next to him, he sees that it is the very edge of the bed. After which she turns to His Majesty, but he claims that the lady has no idea how long he'd waited for this moment. The girl replies that yes, and now she understands her feelings well, so let him unclench his hand, but the guy only claims that he will never let go. After which the girl says that it's not that hand but the other one, because that way he'll break the column. And the guy, looking at his hand, is surprised, and the young lady wonders if he just noticed it now. The Duke also claims that he will take her to another room, and the young lady tells him not to worry about it. He also says that it is dangerous there, but the girl claims that as long as he doesn't touch anything, then everything is absolutely safe. But then the girl also hears some noise and looks outside, after which she sees her brother, who screams so that sister would just look at this girl because she forbids him to enter. The blonde claims Her Majesty ordered no one to enter, but the boy insists he's not the only brother, and Janice says she's Her Majesty's personal guard. Well, the guy cries out, hasn't she heard about compliance, and thinks that it's time to acquire it? The girl then asks the two if they want to stop, and also says that it's time for Eddie to get along with Janice. After all, he brought her so the girl would protect her, but the guy claims she started the fight, and the blonde says he was the one who provoked her first. The young lady then tells Janice that Eddie is the only person who can be allowed to see her at any time, and that she should remember this, to which the girl replies that she obeys. The young lady understands that they say children become friends during arguments, but these kids are different. Meanwhile, the boy tells his sister he'll be out of the picture for a bit. There's a medicine nearby that he couldn't find, and while he's here, he asks if he can get it for her. The girl then asks if there's any medicine left that she hasn't tried, and the guy replies that there is plenty. After which the young lady asks how far it is from there, to which the guy replies that it is very close, and the girl says okay then, and he'll take Janice with him. The girl then cries out to Her Highness. The guy also asks why he has to go with her. The blonde also claims that as her bodyguard she can't leave her, but the main character insists it's an order, and also let them take this opportunity to get along with each other. As the two leave, the Duke turns to the young lady and says that if she's ready, he'll take her to the dining hall. Roviel thinks he looks happy. Then they also enter the dining room, and the girl sees all the family members standing with puzzled faces. At this time, someone pulls out a chair for the Empress and states that the dish of the day is stewed venison, and this is a traditional dish in the northern regions. He also doesn't know if she'll like it. The girl claims she's looking forward to trying everything, and she herself understands that both of his parents are black-haired, while he isn't, and many say he's not a Dahard. The girl also thinks how long she has been waiting for this opportunity, and then tells them to sit down and understands that the opportunity has finally arrived to interrogate them. After which the whole family begins to eat, and the Duke watches his bride with a smile on his face. The Duke's uncle sits there as if attending a funeral. Meanwhile, the girl lays down her cutlery, and she claims that she was informed that he is managing the duchy instead of Haven, and is interested in whether there were any difficulties. The man replies that it is true, and he thanks Her Majesty for her concern, but claims that no difficulties arose. After which, the girl asks if this is true, and claims that she heard that he wants to become a full-fledged duke instead of Haven. The young lady also understands that even though Haven said that there was no need for this, she had long dreamed of raising this topic at a meeting with the Dahards. Well, their reaction surprised her a little, and the girl says that this is how it is and that those are also present there, who opposed Haven becoming duke. Uncle claims there was a time when they were wrong. It's as if his nephew doesn't want to be a duke, but he tells Her Majesty that all that's in the past. The girl then asks if that's true, and claims it was probably a big misunderstanding, to which the man replies that it is true, and that the fact is that in his youth, the boy was afraid to go out into society. The young lady then remembers the Duke and asks if he was afraid, to which the man replies that he was. The girl asks if they're talking about the same person now. The guy's uncle claims he knows it's hard to believe, but until his 16th birthday, his nephew was a very cowardly and weak child. The main character is a little surprised by this and then turns to the Duke, and he asks if he was cowardly, to which the guy replies that it was a long time ago. He also asks his uncle if this is true, to which he replies that of course it is, and the guy is the only Duke of Dahard no matter what anyone says. The main character realizes that she'd been waiting for this interrogation for so long, but it all ended so absurdly. And a little while later she asks if the boy was really a cowardly and weak child. The Duke replies that it was like that in childhood, and the girl asks if in that case a person's personality can change so dramatically. After which the guy says he's still cowardly and weak. Well, the girl says that just because she loves him doesn't mean she'll believe anything. However, the young man takes her hand in his and claims that he is not lying and is afraid every second. That she will turn away from him, but the guy also says that no matter what she thinks of him, he will always love her, and there must come a day when she will find him annoying. The girl replies that this is not true, and he is far from being annoying. After which she asks if he does not see how she loves her brother, although he behaves rather stupidly. After which the guy says yes compared to Earl Seaton. But then the Duke just starts laughing. And the main character watches this with a smile on her face. She realizes that she has no experience in relationships, and instead of being clear to others, she's being kind. Or she prefers to look into the hearts of those she loves, and feels much more comfortable. Dive headfirst into work, and last time, there was no one to feel sorry for her, and in the end, she faced her immersion into eternal sleep alone. So now, if someone loves her despite her flaws, she will do everything to love him back. The girl also understands that Edwin is her precious brother and follows her, and Artem is also the one who missed it so much. And the man who always smiles when looking at her is Haven, who will become her husband. After which, the girl realizes that she is ready to give Haven half of the goat, and he is still not sure of her feelings. But she didn't do anything special for Haven, after which the girl asks why he likes her, and the guy claims that he fell in love with her at first sight and the main character thinks so. How could this happen? And they met on that day when she looked like a walking corpse from overwork. And she wonders how the shady and timid Haven was able to change his uncle's mood. After this, the guy just smiles and claims that he gave him the severed head of Commander Gripton. Then the girl realizes it's time to change the subject for the second time, and screams out what he's talking about and how he even pulled it off. The guy then begins his story, but the girl says she doesn't want to know, and the young man claims that he simply calmly crossed the border and then returned. The girl understands that even Eddie, in 2 lifetimes, hasn't stormed an enemy camp alone at the age of 16, and she thought that no one could surprise her with any crazy antics, but it turned out that she needed a rope, and a very strong one, to tie up these psychos. At this time, the young lady's brother says that his ears are itching, and asks how the girl thinks and whether her sister remembers him. But the blonde only tells the guy not to chatter and to look for a cure for Her Majesty. At that moment, the young man senses some kind of danger and grabs the knight by the clothes, after which he pushes them aside. The girl is a little surprised and, looking at this monster, asks if this is really the same one. The young man replies that yes, and the intestinal bacillus is very useful for the prevention of pulmonary diseases, and they are found only there. The girl also sees some strange liquid spreading across the floor and wonders if it is dangerous, to which the guy replies that yes, and they must be extremely careful that his toxic blood and saliva do not touch them. The blonde closes her eyes at this time and thinks that this is medicine for Her Majesty, after which he opens them with determination and attacks this monster together with the young lady's brother. Janice Skyer is rather lazy and dreams of a quiet, carefree life. To explain why she's willing to fight a bald monster that terrifies her to the point of trembling in order to obtain a cure for the Empress, she explains, "I'll have to turn back time a little. A little while ago, there was a girl who dreamed of a carefree life. One day she pulled out the wrong stick, and everyone then screamed, congratulating her and also affirming that Miss Janice was now the heir to the Duchy of Skyer. Her brother and sister thanked the girl, and they said that thanks to her, they could now relax, and the girl became an heiress when she was only 9 years old. On the day she turned 18, the girl ran away from home. She knew she was being searched. Fencing, administration, and culture were all in the past now, but she wondered if she could find an easy job with a high salary. After which someone approached her and asked if she was Janine Skyer and if she had run away from home. The girl wondered who it was, and the boy remembered how his sister told him to be a good boy, and he asked if she was on the run. And that's great, but when the guy wanted to say something else, the girl just told him to get lost. After which she moved on, and the guy wondered what she had said. But his inner angel, in the form of his sister, told him to resolve everything through dialogue. And the guy understood that it was right, because he needed to be patient, after which he once again turned to the girl and offered to talk to her peacefully. He also asked if she would like to become his sister's bodyguard, and they would provide food, housing, and pay decently. But the girl only said that if he didn't leave him alone right now, she would knock him out. After which the guy said that then the Duchess in coma would catch her, and if she became her sister's personal knight, then even the Duchess wouldn't be able to get to her. The girl then stopped and turned to the guy, and then asked who his sister was, to which he replied that his sister was the Empress of this country. Or perhaps the girl wondered if this was true. After which I saw that the guy had pink hair, green eyes, and looked like he was 20 years old. And she also thought that, of course, no one would be able to take her into account if she became the Empress's personal knight. And then the girl agreed, and the boy said it was good. The girl met the Empress after going through many trials. But unlike her brother, she rarely spoke and was always busy with work. When the secretary approached Her Majesty and stated that it was time for lunch, she stated that the train was after examining this report, while the Duke simply took her in his arms and insisted that it was wrong to starve oneself. The young lady then asked who was starving whom, and she replied that she would eat later. The girl then understood that she would become the Empress's bodyguard, who almost never leaves her desk. It's like winning the lottery and no one complains, even if Janice looks at the sky all day long. The girl even placed a small, soft sofa in front of the window to fully enjoy this quiet, well-paid life. The girl wondered if she could live like this until old age, and then Her Majesty would have to live a long, long time. But if she got overtired, who would fall into eternal sleep first? She recently ate a poisoned pie, but is still careless when it comes to food. After which the girl thinks that Her Majesty will remain her boss even when she's over 90. The baby also thinks that Her Majesty lives so recklessly that both the boy and the northern beast have gone mad. So it's Janice's turn to go crazy with them, even if it means catching a four-legged snake whose entire body is poisonous. So now the girl just keeps repeating to herself that this is medicine for Her Majesty. At this time, the young lady's brother tells her not to damage this monster's organs. A little while later, the main character is already watching as these two bring her medicine. And the girl asks why there are 2 cups, to which her brother replies that the second one is for Haven, but the guy claims that he will refuse such an honor, after which Eddie says that it is very healthy and very tasty. But they tried so hard to find the second monster. After which they also scream for the guy to drink, and he screams and tries to break free. At this time, the main character realizes that she was thinking of tying them up with a harness, but peace and quiet came on its own. At that very moment, the blonde runs into the room and shouts to Her Majesty that Gripton has captured Zilton, after which the main character comes into shock and asks if they really attacked not them but Zelton. The commander of the knights tells Her Majesty of the state absolutely correctly. And a month ago, Zilton sent a letter asking for help, but Gripton intercepted it halfway, which is why they only now learn about the capture. The young lady then wonders if this means that the princess really did come there solely as a distraction. But having captured the terribly rich Gripton, the next target is their empire, after which the young lady screams that they needed to return to Finland right now and also hold a meeting of the nobility as soon as possible. The girl understands that before, Dahart alone was enough to stop Gripton, but the capture of Zilton changes everything, as does their fierce neighbor, who called himself an empire after capturing Zilton. Now their empire surpasses them both in area and population, and in order not to lose, they needed to prepare a lot. A little while later, the knight commanders enter the room and address Her Majesty, to which he replies that yes and thanks her for her work, after which the blonde runs away from there and realizes that she finally has her first rest in a week. The Empress understands that she first ordered an investigation into which nobles Zilton and Gripton were interacting with, and she understands that what they need now is internal unanimity. Despite its weakness, Zilton's military might remain strong, and the reason why Zilton was so easily conquered must be due to internal conflicts. The 7 hills in this house will definitely be divided into 2 camps. It is the conservatives who prefer to just watch, and the proponents of decisive measures who will want to attack Zilton first before he gets stronger. The fact is that many of them didn't attend her coronation ceremony, and the girl wonders how many nobles will follow her. It's precisely this uncertainty that prevents them from initiating direct war. And the young lady thinks that of course there are nobles who were once against her and now support her, but this is a special case. At this point, the Duke turns to Her Majesty and asks if she has a headache. The girl replies that she doesn't, and that it's nothing. But her brother immediately cries out if she is sick, and the bodyguard also asks if everything is all right with Her Majesty. Eddie cries out in concern, could this really be because of Gripton? But if this is so, then let the girl allow him to plunge them all into eternal sleep. The girl then tells her brother not to be so reckless, and to give her a little time. She also understands that it's not that she doesn't understand how these kids feel, and especially her brother, who is used to doing crazy things for her. The guy then says that he will do as his sister says, so that she doesn't get sick, to which the girl replies that she isn't sick and plans to live with him for a long time. But at that very moment, someone bursts into the room and shouts to Her Majesty that this crazy old man from Gripton has proposed to her. But at that very moment, the guy sees how everyone is looking at him angrily, and the young lady asks what he is talking about. A little while later, Eddie laughs, and so does his personal knight and the Duke. The girl tells them to calm down and understands that these 3 look like psychos. The reason for this was a letter from Emperor Gripton. The girl, looking at the piece of paper, asked if he really was that stupid. And she understood that, in a nutshell, it was stated there that if she gave her empire as a dowry, then he would not attack her. After which the girl turned to the Duke, but when he turned to her in response, the girl was a little surprised, and the guy only claimed that tonight he would cut down as Emperor Gripton. Her brother then told the guy to get in line, because that idiot was his. The main character simply told them both to calm down, and asked her personal knight to calm them down. But she just started swinging her sword, and the young lady looked in that direction and thought, did she really just cut the letter? After which the young lady said everything was fine, she had already thought of everything, and her talent was more than enough to save the empire. But the Duke cried out, did she really want to waste her time on something so insignificant? There's nothing to even discuss there. The girl replied that, as Empress, she was obliged to consider all possible solutions to this problem. But her personal knight claimed that there were no other solutions, and her brother claimed that it was right for his sister not to think about anything. Haven asked if she was really ready to get married to save the country, and didn't understand at all that she was essentially selling herself. After which the young lady told the Duke that, no, he had misunderstood everything because she would not be there, getting married because of this, after which the guy sighed and also claimed that he now understands. Why did Count Satan yield the throne to her, and why did he insist on the unification of the continent? But at first, he thought her brother simply wanted to reward her with something good. And if she'd only chosen to be a despotic empress, maybe she wouldn't have called him and the Count crazy so often. The girl then thinks, does she really have to be despotic for them to be normal? At this time, the Duke asks what she was thinking about, and also asks the lady not to tell him that she decided to agree to the love letter. The Empress replies that she was thinking about why Gripton sent her a love letter, and he can't really want to marry her. The Duke then wonders if this is not a veiled request to spare him the torments of old age by depriving him of his head. Or maybe he just wanted to see the lady's reaction, and it could also be a ploy to buy time and restore order in the hastily captured Zilton. The girl claims that this option cannot be ruled out, since the war-obsessed country sees the commercial Zilton, with which it had never had any dealings. The girl also thinks that, thanks to this, she has time to visit the nobles, and the reason why, in this urgent situation, she gathered them all is because that they had recently discovered a royal spy from Zilton, and she had already ordered a check of the registration of all nobles. And tomorrow they will also assess their moods. The Duke asks the ladies not to worry too much. After all, now the Empire operates more openly, and they won't have to unravel their dark plans. The Empress wonders if he really wants to say that because they have become bigger, they are now easy prey for them. To which the guy replies that there is nothing wrong with that. But these two empires are different. After all, Gripton always knew that he would not be able to win the hearts of the inhabitants of their empire. The main character then asks if this is really true and why he thinks so. But the guy replies that it's obvious, and they have a magnificent empress, so how could the people of this empire trade her for the dreadful Gripton? The girl replies that she appreciates his praise, but she needs a more compelling reason. And the guy wonders if it wasn't under her leadership that the Seven Hills were transformed in just 6 months. And what could be more convincing? The girl at this time thinks that he is blinded by love and claims that he did not convince her. The young lady also thought so, but a little while later, one of the aristocrats cried out, "Is the Empress really going to let this idiot get away with everything?" Another duke asked how much disrespect one must have for their empire to dare to do something like that. After which they all said that this idiot should be put into eternal sleep and that the cabbage rolls should be punished for showing disrespect to her. The Empress was a little surprised after this and realized that she had not expected this. And I also thought that only the North would support her, but what happened to the neutral Skyer and the pacifist Delmoy? The girl also thinks she's supported, but not by everyone. And he thinks that it's time to move on to the second part. After which he says that, as they all know, Gripton sent a letter. And it was a letter of marriage with an offer to voluntarily give up 7 Hills and avoid invasion of their lands. That's why she wants to hear their opinions and has organized this meeting. One of the nobles speaks to Her Majesty. What happens if the 7 Hills accept this offer and Gripton still attacks them? The girl replies that it's possible, but it's a chance to avoid war. After which one of them asserts that, if that's the case, the central nobility would like to express its will, and they rise up and cry out that they do not need another emperor except Her Majesty. The girl wonders if they really want to see only her on the throne, and understands that these people were against her when she took the throne, but now one of them claims that if the throne belonged to the past emperor, he would have accepted Gripton's offer without hesitation, but they had already spoken to Her Majesty. They see how the empire has changed thanks to her, and everything will collapse if they accept Gripton's offer. And they also dedicated their lives to Her Majesty and will not bow before Gripton. The girl ponders all this and remains silent for a moment. Then she thinks, this is how it happens, and she realizes that she has succeeded in becoming empress. The young lady smiles and says that if everyone agrees, she will. What about the new ruler of the East? And she wonders what Count Delecnoir thinks. The man replies that the eastern region is in great turmoil, and now the East does not need chaos but a favorable situation. The young lady then thinks that of course not long ago she deprived the East of Duke Pagos, and as the successor to the Duke, who didn't even bother to show up at today's meeting, he openly complains to her, and then the girl thinks about how to convince the East. However, the man insists that Gripton's proposal goes beyond all bounds and being the second hill of the empire. The East will also fight for the empire, which surprises the girl, and she understands that the country was founded by 7 families, each of which lived on its own hill, was called the 7 Hills. However, the meaning of this union has long since faded, and instead of working together, the emperors and nobles competed for power. That's why she refused the Pagos help. Considering that they call themselves the Second Hill in such a situation, and being a member of the alliance, they would not be able to ignore the latest threat. Well, the girl also thinks that, whatever the reason, she is glad that everything is going easier than she expected, and all the nobility has already gathered their strength. After which the girl thinks that it seems she underestimated the patriotism of the nobility, and it is stronger than she thought.